Yeah, I can just share some frustration from today as well, and we had this meeting which is really awesome. It's coordinated by this Jeanette from RISE, and we're trying to see what Europe is doing in HPC, and it's kind of disturbing to see what the focus is and what the money is and how much money the EU is going to put into different HPC techniques. In general, it's really good because we've spoken about the AI divide a number of times, and that is clear.
And Europe needs to step up data-wise. So it's fundamentally good.
Yes.
But how?
And then, it's like the GDPR kind of thing. It's the intentions is awesome, but then the implementation have, some improvements to make. And the same with the HPC investments that's going to happen now. And the big cluster is going to start up in Finland next year, with the super many like NVIDIA GDX A100 machines. And but then they speak about, HPC, this kind of traditional kind of supercomputer, Cray computer, Slurm, MPI kind of techniques, and not really about AI focus. And not even mentioning like the tech giants and the lead they have and the AI divide and things like that. So, for one, it's a bit frustrating for me. So I'm trying to relax a bit now, have a beer and have a discussion with you guys, which is so much more fun. But still, frustrating to see, what Europe is spending, wasting money on.
And what's your frustration on this? Bottom line.
Well, yeah, I mean, as I said, I think, the idea and the intention is great, but then the implementation and what we're starting to see in some upcoming reports and documents, and what Europe will spend money on. Like neuromorphic computing, mixing analog and digital kind of computers, or quantum computers, which, is really fun. It's like GPT-3, it's an awesome philosophical and AGI kind of research work.
But it's more of a 2030 topic than 2020
it's
topic.
Not a practical use for companies today. There's so many better companies, better techniques that are of direct use for industry today. And the same with HPC in this case.
Okay, so how do we frame the HPC landscape? Because we are talking about data, and we have learned that it's called big data. And here we have HPC, high performance computing, which, if I start the journey, don't you mean, the old style mainframes and Cray computers? Isn't that old school news? What is HPC today?
Yeah. It's something that is rather confusing, and it's very overlapping and ambiguous. But I think it's nice to at least divide it into three different parts. So one is exactly what you said. The old style Cray supercomputers with, techniques like Slurm, MPI.
So Slurm, this is the software, how you run.
We schedule and run jobs on and things like that. And they are great, for many purposes, like simulation for biological things or weather forecasting.
And where are they airplane. Really? Where's the Cray computers of the world used today, mainly? Do you know? What applications?
It's basically for this kind of thing. Automotive, how to optimize that, or airplane, or and for biological, trying to do drug discovery, or
like
weather and things like that. Yes,
or CERN, Hadron.
Yes. The Large Hadron Collider kind of things.
Stuff.
Yes, yeah. But in reality, what we're seeing now, it's one task after another get replaced or transformed from a simulation type of work, like weather forecasting, or the protein folding, what is kind of biological, drug discovery kind of things.
And there was a major AI breakthrough.
Yeah,
used the other week, by the way.
Yeah, I think a month ago or something, Google announced this kind of AlphaFold 2, which can basically revolutionize the whole drug discovery thing by replacing the old kind of simulation type approach with a prediction type of approach, which is extremely much highly performant, both in terms of runtime, but also in accuracy, and going from like 50% accuracy to like close to 90%.
And the sheer compute, how you do it is different.
Yeah. So AI and transforming these kind of old style simulation jobs with predictive jobs. We are doing one in Peltarion with weather forecasting, for example, that we can beat the weather forecasting performance of SMHI or the European Weather Center that are doing this kind of simulation, but instead using like deep learning techniques to do so. And it's kind of cool.
So here we have now the mainframe or Cray computer, if I say it like that. Yes. And what's the other two?
Yeah, so I think the other can be big data techniques and AI techniques. So big data, it basically means that replacing these kind of supercomputers, the big mainframes, with a large number of more like medium range computers, like large CPU-based and memory-based computers, but you have many of them. And then you have these kind of
and this
Hadoop-based...
is ultimately, you go into the data center of Amazon and they are amazing, like huge, right?
Yeah. What all the big tech giants did, beginning of 2000 forward, and using Hadoop and Spark and Dataflow and
so
all these
the
kind of
big
techniques.
data space as we know it.
Yeah. But then you have the third, which is AI. And I would argue that, the hardware is different, the software is different, and the applications are different. But the applications are overlapping more and more. So things that were suitable for simulation kind of supercomputer stuff is getting
but if you take the third box now, what is AI hardware?
Yeah, so obviously it's like GPU-based things that we can, and TPU and FPGAs and these kind of specially built chips, application, the ASICs, the application-specific chips that you're.
So we talk NVIDIA, we talk the chipset stuff, which is.
NVIDIA is obviously the leading company.
Parallel processing, yada yada yada.
Yeah, so multi-parallel, but in a single chip, like thousands of cores that you have in GPUs today and TPUs, instead of the 10 to 20 that you have in CPUs.
Yeah.
And then different software, of course, the TensorFlow, the PyTorch.
And where some of these software converge between the big data space and the GPU space.
They're starting to merge a bit.
We talked with Robert, who's Luciani, who's like really on the, at the edge, I think, about exploring how to set up jobs and where you can't do some parallel jobs on GPU. And then he moves the last bits of the job to the CPU. Super cool stuff, right? But this is what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So 3 different areas. They all sometimes are like intermingled into this HPC context, but I think it's important to separate like the traditional type of HPC with big data techniques and with AI techniques.
You used to understand the landscape and understanding what is useful right now.
Yeah, exactly. But still, it's frustrating to read sometimes, but I think it's super good what we're doing in Sweden and all the initiatives that are happening here. And perhaps we can, in Sweden, then focus on what really does work for industry and take some advantage of all the money that is going to be spent from EU also for, these kind of HPC clusters, like in Finland with the Lumi cluster, also for like a Swedish industrial use case and use use what really works.
Yeah, but if I'm allowed to be a little bit politically incorrect, I don't know if it is.
I have already been there saying EU is not knowing what they're doing.
Okay, so bottom line now, what is happening here? Like we have the great AI divide, we have the big tech giants, and they are clearly going in one direction. Yeah. And here, EU is actually talking about this from a different angle, HPC. I mean, like you wouldn't name it HPC if you went to Google or to Amazon. No. So what's the bottom line? If I'm asking you to elaborate,
they want me to be politically incorrect as well.
What do you think is happening here? Why are we not on the ball and doing? Why are we not? Are we trying to leapfrog? Is it something? Why are we sort of stuck in? I say stuck now in these ideas.
Yeah, I'm a bit afraid that they're speaking about in this kind of new reports and calls that are being created about creating this European open stack or something. Yeah, and it's basically building a data infrastructure in Europe that is going to be separate from other things in some way. And in some way, I think the intention there is awesome because we have this kind of great bad kind of dependency to the cloud providers, the top cloud providers in the world today, the Google, the Amazon, the Microsoft, and the Chinese Alibaba and Baidu, etc. So, there is none in Europe.
So we kind of need to find the European way, some way. So idea, intent, fantastic.
Yeah. So perfect, problem that they identified. But then is the solution that the European Commission is going to build something themselves or can to direct that, or should it be from companies? Or should they incentivize companies to become these kind of tech giants in Europe and in that way have some kind of European alternatives to the big tech giants?
So it's one problem is how we organize the money and invest the money. Yeah. But the other one here we are looking at is like the sheer investment in tech that we kind of don't understand why we choose this tech.
I think we can compare it to like a normal company like Scania or something, and they want to increase their data and AI readiness. And then you can think about different ways to do that.
Should I invest in quantum computing, Scania?
Yes, exactly.
So you have
Scania could have some use for it, but not quantum, but for HPC potential.
Yeah, but it's interesting, right? Is our first choice a quantum computer when I'm going to sell something new to Scania? Probably not.
No. So they claim they want to support the industry, and not only like research. It's a lot of research initiatives, that get a lot of investments, which is great, of course. But also to have some kind of balanced investments, also for industry, I think is important. And then you can't do it in the same way. You need to listen to what the industry wants and needs, and then adapt the investments to that. And it seems like they're just trying to take what the traditional have done and put that onto industry as well, which is not going to work.
But you said, and I'll read it between the line here, correct me if I'm wrong, and this is not facts, it's opinion maybe. Yeah. It's like we put a lot of money and attention to HPC 10 years ago, and now kind of we can't say that's the wrong choice, so we kind of need to spend more money on the same stuff. Am I out of line when I say that?
But how much is this? How much is this now? So if you can see, most of the countries are actually saying that they are investing themselves in some kind of a AI 2030, right? Yeah. Like you had Macron now speaking 2 weeks ago, was it? Or 1 week ago?
Something like this.
Yeah, speaking about their investment in this area and how much is this individual country-wise and how much is EU-wise?
Yeah. Every country in Europe are saying they're going to be the AI leading country in Europe.
Yes, but then how does that contribute to the AI Europe vision?
Yeah.
If everything is done
I think it's
separately.
So this is the fragmentation problem, as I call it sometimes. So it's a lot of small initiatives. Everyone wants to become leading themselves, if it's a country or if it's a company inside a country, or if it's some small organization. And they all want to do it separately. And that exists in Sweden as well. And it certainly exists in Europe.
It's advantage, right?
Yeah. I mean, they all have their political agenda. And if they can't show that, they spend all the money to become the best themselves, then they're not basically doing their work in some sense. And if you think about the people writing these kind of applications, and this is a lot of speculation from my side, so keep that in mind. But still, you can know that.
Lucky us that is live streamed.
Yeah, hard to cut unless you have quantum computers. You probably can't cut it afterwards. Okay.
Or Kirill, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, but it's written by people that used to work in this traditional space, and then of course they write it in similar ways. Otherwise, they will discredit themselves in some way, and that has its problems. And for some of these reports, you can't even see them mentioning the tech giants and the techniques and the cloud providers and the techniques used in these clouds. But then they're going to build this European cloud, which is going to be based on neuromorphic and quantum computers instead of what the industry really needs today.
So who wrote that ambition statement?
So the report, is the report public?
No, not really. There are a lot of reports, so some of them yes, but some are not. But there are a lot of reports coming up now in this year with the white paper of AI, for example.
If our listeners wants to stay on top of the game, do you have any good ideas of where to find information and read these EU reports or these? I mean, like for instance, I've been staying on top of the DIG reports. They've been really good. Yes. But it's also highlighting the direction for Sweden. If I want to do that on a European level, do you have any recommendations where to look?
In Sweden, we have this AI Sweden initiative that have a lot of traction just in recent years, 2 years. I wish they had something similar in Europe that could try to coordinate, what's happening and have some kind of really newsletter and things. You can, submit. There is so many of them. EIT exists, of course, but EIT is like 7 different directions or parts by itself. The whole EU then is divided into so many different subparts. To have like an overview of that is extremely hard.
But can we agree that basically we are just late? And right now we are trying to expedite, but we don't know actually how. And we don't have the experts to write those criteria. I think that this is basically what I see it as a problem. I think that
the main problem, Anders, is also highlighting that we are sort of stuck based on some decisions or some expertise that shaped our way of thinking 10 years ago is still showing up as a ghost.
Yep.
I mean, there is a notion of sunk cost. Come on. You can't do investments moving forward looking at, you need to understand this is sunk cost. Now we need to look at what's the best investment based on we stand here. And in between the lines, I hear we are carrying baggage into our decisions that we maybe don't need.
I think in short you can say it's too much politics in these kind of investments being done. And I wish more.
Isn't it the same in enterprises?
Yeah, it's the same in enterprises.
You have the middle management screaming like
No,
I
it's-
know how
it-
to change
it-
the things.
The big enterprise is just a microcosmos of the same problems.
I think it's surprisingly many analogies.
Very
between them.
analogies
Yes.
are similar.
Yeah.
And I believe that this is just, if we're looking at on a positive note, I think that people have at least realized the urgency of acting.
Yes.
And I believe that is something
And this
that we
is
cannot,
still the best.
Yes, I do.
To have urgency and to do stuff.
Yes.
To spend money.
Yes.
If
And-
I'm put it like,
And
it's
some
better than
good-
nothing.
Some good initiatives will come from it. I mean, the Germans have, Germany has their Gaia project, which is their cloud, and they're working with public-private partnerships around that. It's together with Airbus and EIDC and all of these other companies.
Automotive comes in.
Exactly. So, and in Finland, probably they will do it in the same way. And it's not something that is special. This has been done in the public sector for many years. When they cannot accelerate, they will look for public-private partnerships. And I believe this is the next stage. But we are just confused because we need to act and we don't know how. And I believe that we need to look at the competence. They should have people like you sitting there and typing those reports instead of, I think that you will not like to type that report, but you understand. So I think
we do a lot of EU applications and reporting. So
But I hope I make myself some kind of sense here, because I believe in enterprise is the same thing. You have the middle management screaming to do a change, and then the leadership is actually not seeing that because the people on the top are not data literate or AI literate enough to understand what is the true vision of it. So I'm going to be the politically incorrect here because that is my job, right?
I think we all are, but
we are trying.
Yes, but I think that we are on the right way. We need to look at the positive thing.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of positive things happening. So that's for sure. So I'm just a bit frustrated from today, but in overall, I think over the year it's been a lot of very very.
So
positive.
isn't it nice to come and have therapy?
Yes, it's an awesome therapy session here, I think.
But it's the final episode
of
the season.
Of the season, thank God.
Yes.
I thought you were going to say something.
No. But isn't it amazing? We managed through a season.
Yeah. And it's worked. I mean, I know, Goran, that you've been very frustrated with Henrik and me, and we're not keeping to the topic, and we're just, rambling on in various ways.
No.
And Goran,
Yes.
every session for the camera, you don't know this. How am I going to cut this? Where is my themes? You need to do themes, guys. Come on.
It's the OCD just running through, No, I think that in general, I think it was a very great season because we explored so many topics, but as well, I think that this was a learning process. We didn't have any of this technology or any of these processes in place, and now we can actually live stream any point of time. And we have had some tremendous, great presentations, great speeches, but in the same time, awesome people.
So how many sessions in the first season now?
So this is the 15.
15. We're sitting here
It's
on
actually the 16, but the
16.
0 one was not published. That was the intro one that we recorded, if you remember.
Yeah, we as a trial, yeah?
Yes. I would like to repeat a little bit on that because Anders had like a very interesting story that he should share.
I don't remember that, but okay.
No, that was the how you end up being in the army.
Oh, yeah, the outside of CV kind of things.
Yeah, but to put the context now, we thought we're going to start the whole podcast with doing the first episode to introduce the host.
Yes.
But then in the end, we never published that. So we never really introduced ourselves.
No,
I guess not. Yeah.
So
who is Anders?
Yeah, I'm an old guy that's been doing AI for over 20 years. And I don't like doing the resume kind of things,
So talk about the army story instead.
Well, I've always been a geek. I always, programmed since I was 5-6 years old, and had this first computer that was a ZX81 Sinclair with 8 kilobytes of RAM, and I had an extra 8 kilobytes taped onto it, so I could have 16 kilobytes. And always been geeky in that way. I had, what perhaps is not on my resume, I had a period during my studies where I did a lot of hacking as well. And did that in a number of things.
You never put that on your resume. Why not? I'm kidding.
Well, you're young and stupid, but I remember, a number of things that happened. One, when I had to do my military service, then we had access to this kind of terminal. And I was deep into hacking at that time. I love these kind of things. How can you get into that system? How can you do that? And how can you stop? me from doing that. But I had this terminal, and you're supposed to just do some kind of boring like administration work on it. But then I found a way to get in through the menu, and then suddenly I would get the terminal, and you get a terminal access. That's nice. So I started to wander around in the file system and see what it was, and I didn't really know what it was, but I found some games, and I played some games there, and oh, cool! You can play Tetris here on a text terminal. It's super cool. So I showed my friends, in military service, and this is super cool. You can just do this.
So this was on the Swedish military's, office systems, or something like this.
And apparently I was into the, Swedish defense system, and I had full access to all the documents and whatnot in that file system. But I had no idea that I actually had that. But then, I was doing some kind of field exercise wintertime in Gotland, and then the military police came and, where is Anders Arpteg? And, they brought me into this kind of high quarters in the military, and I was sitting there in this round table with military police, and literally like lamps in the face that you see here. And I was like shitting my pants. I was 18 years old, and I was super scared. And they were asking, what have you done? Have you sold some kind of information to someone? Why do you do this? And I was, just played some games.
Played Tetris.
Please not. But then, I helped them a bit to fix the problem, so no one else could get in through that problem, and they were super happy. And afterward, they asked, well, if you ever want to work with the military's security, then just let us know.
Here is FRA way. Go this way.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Best way to land a job. Right?
Yeah.
I guess you don't put that on your resume.
No, it's not there. But it's a good way to truly want to understand, how a computer works and all the layers of application, operating systems, and the APIs that you have in a system like that. If you truly want to understand it, I think you need to dig deep into it, and that's what you have to do if you want to be able to hack into something as well.
And then you landed in Campania, right? Or no?
Then I started this kind of website that became really popular. It's called the Buyer's Guide. So I was still studying my engineering degrees at that point, but it became one of the top websites in Sweden with tens of thousands of users every day, which is big. This is the end of the 90s, so it's a long time ago. But that meant, I basically did like a fully automated shopping site, think like Price Runner or Prisjakt, but long before they existed. But then I had a lot of Perl regular expression kind of hacks, so manually programming all the extraction rules to get information about products and prices and reviews and whatnot from different retailers in Sweden. But it was a lot to maintain. So, manually maintaining all these rules is really a lot of work. So then I got an option, and, I had a rather easy time in university. So they basically asked, do you want to do a PhD? And I said, yeah, sure. Well, here's the money. What do you want to do it in? So I said, I think this kind of information extraction technique that, I was using should be using some kind of AI perhaps. So then, sounds good. So then I started to do my PhD in AI to basically try to automate how information can be extracted from different semi-structured documents in different ways. So that meant reinforcement learning and different kind of information extraction techniques and things like this. And then I thought, I would continue in academia, and that was my idea. And I did continue after my PhD to work as a professor in Kalmar University, which is now called Linnaeus University. But then I got some venture capital to basically commercialize my PhD project. But it was conditioned on me actually working for the company that financed me. So I was forced into industry. And I said, okay, I can spend 50% of my time working in industry if you force me in. But as long as I can spend the rest of the time on my PhD project, then it's fine. But then I started to realize, working in industry with AI is actually much more fun. And you can really make use of AI and learn much more how to really use AI in industry than you can in academia, unfortunately. But that was the experience for me. So I've been working mainly with AI in industry from that point, and has been working in Campania. The first company was Viral Internet Group and Test Freaks that had this other kind of shopping site. So these are the founders of Price Runner actually, that funded me and that I started working for. So we had the second generation shopping site. Then it was killed by Google in 2011. In February, in a single day, we lost 70% of all traffic because Google changed the ranking algorithm and introduced something called the Panda update, which meant that websites that extract information from other websites get very much lower rank. Basically, we dropped out of the top 10 for most of the products and information that we had, and we lost 70% of the revenue in a single day. And we were launched throughout the world, in the US and China and a lot of countries in Europe, etc. One day. And then a couple of months later, Google launched Google Shopping, which is exact copy of what we were doing. I wonder if there is correlation. Another politically incorrect statement from me. But so the power of Google is, it's awesome that they exist. Google has done so much for the world with the extremely useful and powerful search engine and all the other services they have. But it's also a bit scary how dependent we are to them. And when they continue to launch into one, vertical after the other, not just search engines, but travel industry and booking and whatnot, it's a bit scary. The cloud, we can speak about the cloud products and whatnot later. But anyway, then Campania and doing this kind of AI for online marketing, and we had Netflix worldwide, that we managed their marketing for. I remember building some kind of AI boost algorithm, as I called it, and I was tuning this kind of algorithm in some way, and then the next day I came in after I changed a small parameter for that algorithm. Suddenly the budget for Netflix went up with $100,000 because of that change. And I thought, whoops, that was my fault. It was not good. So it's a kind of a fun experience of how, when you have a huge budget to play with and AI that controls, how it's going to be spent. If you do a small mistake, it can have, big consequences. But we have a big competition in that company with going against the rest of the world's top online marketer, and we won that competition. So that's why we got to worldwide marketing for Netflix, which was very fun. But then I got contacted by Spotify, and I worked there for many years, and were able to build up a research team as well that basically used machine learning and big data techniques to try to optimize different Spotify services. And then Peltarion, just to quickly jump over to that. So I got contacted by one of the investors in Peltarion in 2016 or something, and basically asked, Anders, have you heard about Peltarion? I said, no, never heard about that. And he started to explain, it's a company that's been around since 2004, but they focused, from beginning on this kind of neural network technologies long before deep learning was popular. And they always had this idea that, building AI systems is really complicated and it takes a lot of time. And most people don't have the knowledge to do so. So they, wanted to make it better and provide better tooling. So they started to build this kind of tool called Synapse in the beginning. It was a .NET desktop-based application that helped you build these kind of systems. But then as, deep learning came along and you could see how the tech giants were, using data and AI in extreme ways, but also see that most other companies failed. To try to use especially this kind of latest type of AI techniques, they wanted to do something about that. So the investors basically asked the founders, can you now try to scale up this? Can you now build a cloud-based and much bigger system that can really truly make AI available for everyone? And they said yes, and then we got a lot of funding from EQT and Wallenberg and this American fund called Euclidean. So we grew from 2 people up to 80 people plus today.
When were you in? Number 5 or 10? Or
something like that. 4 or 5 or something, I think. And we basically have 2 teams. So one big team that is building a platform and tooling to make it really simple to use AI. And we also have a big research team that I'm working in heading up. And we basically have the goal to try to, for one, just keep up with all the amazing progress that's happening in AI, which is hard enough, even if you work with this daily. And also, advance and write articles, so advance the state of the art in AI.
How is the Peltarion AI research team's mission stated as a contribution to Peltarion? What is your ultimate mission?
So you can basically say it's 3 things. So one is simply to advance AI, which is, of course, the more academic type of research that you want to do. It's also to, of course, guide the development of the platform and give advice for, what are really the best techniques that are making sense for industry today, to know what simply works or not work for real industrial use cases. So that's the other task. But and then third, you can say that we basically want to know, what do work by working closely with a few selected companies. So we do collaborate closely with a number of big Swedish and international companies to experiment with the latest techniques and see how do they work when you have real industrial data sets.
So
real industrial
and if
problems.
I understand it right, you're trying to do a very customer-centric research in this third leg. So basically, instead of sitting at home doing it, you're really trying to latch on to a couple of key customers and work together with them.
In the research team, yes. We're also building up a new expert services team that are going to help more.
But that is more like. But this is even trying to evolve the Peltorian platform with a few select customers who are really help. Is in there on almost like a different angle as a research angle.
Yeah. So I think one way to phrase it with a term that we use is to truly try to operationalize AI. Mm-hmm. And the difference between perhaps traditional deep learning, or we've used this kind of Jeremy Howard statement about research in AI, and he basically says most research in deep learning is a complete waste of time. Yeah. And
you don't put yourself in that corner.
No, we don't want to do the same mistake, basically. That's a big difference. So instead of chasing just the leaderboard for some kind of academic data set and that type of task, we want to see what are the challenges?
Real world problems.
Why are so few companies not using AI, and how can we advance research to make it better and easier to do that? So that, in short, is the mission of the research team and Peltorian.
I get it.
And perhaps if we can just, I don't normally speak about the platform Peltorian that much because it's not my place to pitch that in this one, but perhaps today I do have a chance to pitch on a bit more.
You have 1 minute.
1 minute.
1 minute, Jesus Christ! You usually give me 30 seconds.
Yes, so exactly. So I think that
1 minute.
Okay. But there's been so many things happening just the recent year or half year or the autumn of 2020, and we launched the multilingual BERT. So you can easily train a model on the platform with any language, including Swedish, for example. A lot of these kind of wizards to simply make it easier to build up the model, even if you don't know exactly, what is efficient net and what type of activation function should I have and what is really working with this type of data set. Then having some kind of guided process through that has really made it so much easier to do that. And then launching on Azure and Azure Marketplace and a lot of integrations with Google BigQuery and Azure Synapse and these kind of power apps that you can build apps, mobile apps or web apps and whatnot in so much simpler ways, and then simply connecting AI to it in an easy to use way.
So Peltorian and Power Apps is you're merging, or how does that work? Because I think that's a quite interesting one.
Yeah, so Power Apps, makes it easy for people that perhaps is not, super expert in developing apps if it's mobile or.
But I would never expect you to talk about RPA technology.
No, I will take that. No,
Power Apps is RPA, right?
No, it's not. This was, he's trying to make me angry here.
I was terribly late today. I was planning to go to this t-shirt shop and say have Anders in RPA forever. I think that he will love that t-shirt.
Jesus Christ.
So that was a low ball, but
yes.
in Scania we put Power Apps in the RPA corner.
Oh, you do?
Oh, we do. Let's leave it. Let's leave it. That was a low ball.
Yeah,
that was fun.
I mean, still imagine if you want to simply, have a user interface in some way and connect it to different backend and front ends. Now you can also connect it to an AI system that allows you to train a model and use that very quickly for doing some kind of text classification. Or whatever.
And used to be super clear. I didn't mean that Peltorian now is what Peltorian is all about, which is AI.
Yeah.
But how do I merge that with good workflows? And here, Power App is a workflow tool, which is essentially, what you can argue RPA is all about to put something on top.
I think RPA is better described as a macro tool.
Yeah.
Or, recording macros.
You're recording macros, but
that's not Power Apps. I would say.
Power Apps can be used like that.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. That's fair.
But what I like, because I like it, is that you are trying to figure out ways. How do I make Peltarion capability of simplifying deep learning type techniques as an integrated everyday tool set in the other toolbox? And then you can explore how does that work together with Power Apps? How does it work together with Salesforce? How does it work with whatever Dynamics?
Google
right?
Sheets or whatnot.
Google Sheets, right?
ERP
So that's the point, right? But I had to.
You have to do the low bowl kind of.
No, it was
stab
not
in the
that
back. No, but RPA is not that horrible. It's just it's an.
I think that we will come back to that topic, but I believe that AI as a service is actually the future. So
yeah, exactly.
So we can discuss about that a little bit later on. Yeah. Good. Number 2, Mr. Henrik Göthberg.
Yeah, who am I? So I don't have the same sort of, I've been working with AI since I was 3 years old kind of resume.
Well, you have human intelligence though, so in some way you have.
I don't know, but so my background, I'm from the West Coast. I studied chemistry. I realized I'm not an engineer style. I'm really intrigued with sales and marketing actually, and I actually got really intrigued around the notion of what was then called relationship marketing, and basically went to university and studied services and relationship marketing. And then I had to go to I actually moved to Australia, because if I wanted to go to Handels, det var liksom a normal, you studied economy, this is in the 90s where you didn't really have, I want to go to university to study marketing. And then I wanted to surf as well, by the way. so I went to Australia to study relationship marketing and to surf. I thought I was going to stay there for 3 months, and ended up studying for 3 years. Had a great time and got hooked on it. And the whole basic idea was, of course, to start looking at lifetime value of your customers and stuff like that, rather than mass marketing. And when you come to communication and advertising, how do you do one-to-one advertising? So here we have, in the 90s, really has been around forever, right? Around how do I personalize my recommendations and messages to my customers? And from here on, moving into working firstly in the IT space. So that's where I got my hacking competence. Right. So I started working in sales, right, and key account management, and then I took the certifications on digital Compaq and IBM. And basically, we were selling storage area networks. We were selling, high availability clusters, stuff like this, right? So I worked for Mercantil Data, which is now part of AIAW. This is really hard. This is infrastructure stuff, operating system and database, data center environments. And going from here, I ended up within this space, within one of the areas within Mercantil Data and AIAW at this point in time, and the name changed to Terra Mentor is AIAW, and there was a niche business based on mergers and acquisitions that were focused on analytical CRM. So here we were. This is now we are in the early 2000s, or 2001, and we are selling analytical CRM. We are talking about collaborative CRM. This is what we know today when we say Salesforce or Dynamics. At that point in time in the world, it was Siebel. You remember Siebel? No. Siebel was the CRM system that eventually got bought by Oracle. But we were talking analytical CRM, which basically what we did. This is 2000, right? We built data marts to feed SAS Enterprise Miner, to build next best action recommender systems in statistical modeling approaches in SAS Enterprise Miner. So this is now products within the SAS world that is called CMM, which is literally, if you go to SAS and ask what is CRM all about, they will talk about the next best action engine, which is a recommender engine, right? And instead of you go to Salesforce, they will tell you another story of multi-channel and marketing automation and all that. But we basically then worked already here now with the core customers were banking and insurance, and basically looking at the share of wallet. So with this profile of customer, how do I find the twins? And what should I recommend this new type of customer that only have one product? How should I act and how should I recommend based on finding twin profiling, essentially looking for twins. That's it, right? And then from here on, I started working. I worked for a while within the medtech industry, working with our CRM and data warehouse here, which was very, very interesting. This is pre-GDPR, but our customers were patients. Oh. So now let's talk about this. Now we need to do permission-based marketing. So GDPR to me is nothing new under the sun. If you work with how do you communicate to patients,
some industries, nothing
it's
changed
not new.
For them.
It basically set up your processes in the right way. Understand that you need to get permission and have that part of your DNA. It's not a problem. Simply put. So so this is sort of the journey I've been on, and then I got into consulting, working with a company called Pro Sales, and now I'm sort of closing the loop back all the way to my university degree and working on sales and marketing topics. And what always fascinated me more. So I'm not a techie guy in terms of that I can code and stuff like that, but I never really got suckered or felt really that strategy or is so sexy either. For me, the how part, how do I make an organization how does an organization work? So how does the people actually work? So if I want to build a high performance sales organization, that was my core topic, right? How do I build a high performing marketing organization? How does that look like? And actually, how does it need to look like in relation to if I sell mobile phones or if I sell jet fighters? Right? How does a sales operation for jet fighters look like working with Saab? It's quite different, right? Different sales cycle than if I work for Tria selling consumer plans, right? Yeah. So within that space, starting to look at operations, KPIs, all that. Then I basically we did a very big job with Vattenfall, where we basically process as a consulting gig. Did a transformation on the complete B2B sales operation. And it started basically by separating, really looking at how do we really do key account management for really high impact, energy buyers versus mid-size versus small companies, and then B2C was someone else. So we were working in the B2B space and then starting to look at fundamental operations and process. And when I got into there, basically we divided the job. In one part was sort of looking at the sales guys, but what we did this, and mind you, this is 2012. How do we build marketing automation? How do I build a machine, a 10x effect, to basically weed out the best of the best leads, and then nurture them into qualified sales opportunities and all the way down to sales. So basically, I set up an operation in Europe to generate, 20,000 leads only in Germany, right? So we're generating highly qualified leads. And ultimately then the way we structured this is I had the role was head of business intelligence and lead generation. So it's a quite interesting role. Starting in strategy, working with market intelligence. So this is typical, your customer stuff, your industry stuff, your competitor stuff, what you can go and get from McKinsey or someone like this to build up that know-how of the market. But then the idea was, how do I go from this fluffy idea all the way down to the lead sheet that I gave the sales guys? So how do I make that happen from go-to-market strategy down to and then ultimately I set up a team on European scale, which had one part market intelligence and one part data analysis, we call it, and literally looking at fundamental topics like churn, acquisition. Mikael Klingvall, that was here as a guest, I took him in to basically model the addressable market in Europe. So basically, how do I, if I give an example, B2B for Vattenfall, how many companies in Sweden is there? There is known entities, like 500,000 companies, right?
Really?
My list, the way I looked at Sweden for B2B was 20,000 customers. That's it, right?
Yeah.
And then within that 20,000 customers, if I'm on an energy contract that is renewed every 3 years, who is in the market every single year? So building models for this.
And for people that don't know Vattenfall, I mean, it's a big company. How would you describe Vattenfall for people that don't know what they do and how big they are?
I mean, like Vattenfall is a full, what is called a full value chain utility. And when you say full value chain utility, it means that you're working through the whole value chain of producing energy into trading energy, into networking, distributing energy, into selling energy. So essentially, if you look at a full value chain utility from a P&L, profit and loss statement, you have one part of the company who's producing and making money, producing energy that they're selling to the market. You have one part of the company who's optimizing the trading portfolio of energy as a commodity, trading on Nasdaq or on the physical energy exchanges like Nord Pool in Europe. And then you have this is called upstream business within a utility. And then downstream, you have the fundamental distribution. So someone is owning and managing the networks. You get a network bill. And then actually, so that is a monopoly where you live. And then ultimately, you as a consumer or as a B2B organization, you have your energy bill in the end. And ultimately, you work with energy efficiency and stuff like this. Yeah. So the traditional energy value chain is very distinctly 3 or 4 different business models, right? Strings in a sequence. And what is happening in the energy industry, which is a huge paradigm shift, is basically when we as consumers or as businesses start to produce our own energy, we basically becomes an ecosystem. We have prosumer roles. And if you think about that from a data perspective, the traditional energy system is set up like your bloodstream. You have one big heart, big assets, pumping energy. And then it goes further and further out, high volume, smaller out like this. And now all of a sudden, data and energy is flowing in both directions.
We did a research application in this area, and I'd love to hear your opinion on that. But perhaps we should take it afterwards if you have some more. Or
we can take. I can just finish that. So, but in that space, I started working in the B2B space, and then basically after a couple of years, I moved over to. I mean, that sort of set to work on these topics. I remember one simple topic. I promised my boss that I would build a customer profitability pyramid. Basically understanding, we want to understand our customer, who is our most important customers from a profitability point of view. And Henrik, I don't only want gross margin, I want the bottom line margin, And when you get that, it's a simple enough question. But not in an enterprise where all the data is at this point in time sitting in the different silos. Yes. So the costing is here, So to build a view of the customer here means that I have the massive data. I call it data assembly. Okay, so I use the word. We need to build data assembly platforms. So this is the way I rhetorically spoke to people that weren't in tech, right? Of course, you can do this with data warehousing, but it was another dimension. It was building analytical records. Of course, this is not new for you in Spotify, but to do that in Vattenfall, I think this is sort of I'm on the curve here where this journey is starting in the enterprise. 2012. This is really the curve where the enterprise started to take notice, and doing that put me in a position that I was headhunted internally to head up on group level what was called a BIO role. So if you have the enterprise organization, enterprise IT, sometimes you talk about IT demand and IT supply, right? IT supply is the CIO. And if I'm rude now, he's the chief infrastructure officer. not information officer, right?
I think that is good.
Yeah, but anyway, he's supplying the systems, right? And the common model is that you have one who is BIO, representing one part of the business, who then basically, so all the budget is here, and this is just the cost in IT. And we sit with the project span and with the round span and what we should do with IT, and then we use IT supply as an internal supplier. So I had that role then for the CFO processes. So I was responsible for record to report. This is sort of transactional processing, plan to perform, planning and forecasting for Vattenfall, and then we had it for procurement and for treasury. That was sort of my core processes. So then I was the system owner for the system landscape in Vattenfall for these topics, and I had the budget around this, which is then going from ERP systems to the central data platform, central warehouses, and all our consolidated reporting systems, stuff like this. And digging into that journey, really in 2015, starting to understand, okay, how do we work this, efficient workflows for record to report in SAP ERP style, and how do I now take this assembly of data for analytics and forecasting purposes to essentially support business control, optimization of investments and resource allocation. How do we build those platforms? And then we basically started, now we talk about data mesh. That's the cool new thing, right? But we actually talked about, I built up a couple of data products within Vattenfall from 2015 and forward. But basically, I got in, and no one had said this before, we need to have this infrastructure. So I own this sort of cost data, and all operational processes want to understand the cost in relation to the operational processes. So how can I serve anyone within Vattenfall with cost data? How can I serve them on raw data level if they want to do their own algorithms? How can I serve that on some sort of global data set level if they want to have, we want to understand how many FTEs we have in a huge corporation. It's impossible almost. Now I will serve that data set so they can then take that into other algorithms. And then how can I serve tabular cubes, and how can I ultimately serve reports? So basically, we structured we didn't say data products. We said raw data assets, data set assets, analytical assets, and reporting assets, and then basically working around the federated governance around that and all that. So that sort of journey shaped me a lot on this whole orchestration problem.
And how many years were you at Vattenfall again?
7 years.
7 years.
7 years. And then after Vattenfall, I basically started up my own company, and basically decided that, I wanted, actually another key story of my life is meeting you, Goran, and during that process of time, working closely with Hyperite and being the chairman for the Data Innovation Summit, and for me that was actually a way somewhere. At first I didn't go to any conferences at all. I didn't have time, right?
I know that.
I know you were chasing me, but at some point in time I realized
I met Henrik in 2000, or I called Henrik the first time in 2012.
Yeah,
in September.
Yeah, but the bottom line here was that the groupthink within Vattenfall on how things were done was too strong, and I was still learning. I didn't know the stuff. I needed to find adult learning approaches, right? And I need to talk to the best of the best. I need to understand what they're doing. And then I figured out, well, if I'm going to go to conferences, I actually prefer to speak. Yeah. I think it's fun. It's a great way to network. It's an icebreaker in itself. And so that's another part really then shaping me to take a completely outside-in look on how can we do this. And then the challenge is, of course, that what works in Spotify will not work the same in Vattenfall. Never. No. But you need to understand then Vattenfall and our culture and our setup, and then understand what did they achieve and how would that work here. So that really shaped me, that even when I buy consulting or how I want to engage, I was looking for some other types of model, and this is my pitch now. I'm working really with one company. It's like a startup that has been divided into two major parts. One part is Derdax, is my company, which essentially is based on an idea to form consortiums around the best experts on the planet in different fields of a cross-functional Venn diagram. We talk about the Venn diagram.
And what does DARDAX stand for? It's a nice acronym, right?
Yeah, so DARDAX is actually Data AI Ready, and DUX is Latin for, if you Google DUX, it means guide or leader.
Yes.
So it was the DARE guide.
Nice.
And the basic idea then, like having been a consultant for a couple of years and being in sales, and then sort of working now 7 years buying a lot of consultants and also buying a lot of the vendors, all the whole procurement stuff, all that. Mm-hmm. My strong feeling was consulting, if for me, means something else than to take over for another company. I think for society to become data and AI ready, for society to close the data and AI divide, we need our proud analog companies to make their own journey. So my job as a consultant is not for them to outsource this know-how to me, but it's for me to hold their hand and grow with them and help them bootstrap them. Yeah. And which actually has then how you do consulting, how you do your engagement. I'm not alone to say that, of course, but it has a completely different outlook on how you take on your job.
And now you work with another big company, right?
Yeah. So now in DARDAX, Scania for me, it was quite interesting because starting DARDAX, and we basically also try to figure out, when you do startup, what's the fundamental business model? What am I going to do? We have tons of consultants in data and AI or whatever. So trying to figure out that model and all that. And I started to work with a couple of different companies, Grundfos, Sumitomo. I did some small gigs with Boliden. And then basically an old friend of mine called up and we had a meeting here at the Data Club where she basically took on a new job and she basically needed to build her management team. And she said, look, Henrik, I think you know what this is all about because Scania is quite decentralized. And I know you worked in a quite decentralized model, how it works in Vattenfall. Do you want to come and work with me? And for me now, I'm going to build my company. And I was trying to help her and explain to her when you do this, Helena, that's her name, we need to build a muscle. You need to build an engine.
You need to do a shout out to Helena as well.
Yeah, so Helena Hörnebrand.
Do a shout out to her.
Yeah, so basically we were sitting there for 1 hour trying to sell to each other with slightly different words, exactly the same thing. So then basically I was pitching to her, I'm building this company. It means you need to work in this way. I'm only want to work with customers who wants to truly become data AI ready themselves, who understands that this is not a project thing. This is a muscle thing that you need to build up so you grow your data and AI readiness over time. So that's why I say data and AI ready, because we are so far away to be, data AI. It's a readiness journey.
Compared to the tech giants, at least.
Yeah. Compared to the tech giants, that's the point, yeah. And here we are now sitting in a meeting where we basically sell the same idea to each other, and then we basically figured out, all right, so I'm taking on a role now within Scania. So I'm then within one domain, Scania Financial Services. So this is the part of Scania that is working with the loan and leasing and insurance for fleets of trucks and buses on a global scale. And now we are so it's a quite transformative journey for the bank. How are we going to automate that business and optimize that business, and integrate that business even further into Scania. And with that said, I took on the role as what we call global data and insight, or insight and backbone is the word we're using internally now. So basically building the foundation in data-driven ways of working on platform. Basically, if you have a couple of core ERP systems, how do I containerize the ERP systems and put them next to data products of different kinds? So very much inspired by Lale and you guys, and trying to understand that on a global scale.
For a tech person, when you say containerized, it means something else. But yeah,
I actually mean it.
You do? Dockerize things.
No, not Dockerize, but in this, understanding an ERP system, even if it's a really big microservice, so it's still something
isolated at least.
ERP needs to be able to serve data efficiently like any other data products.
Awesome.
So that's what I'm doing. And then I should give a shout out. I've been wearing this Airplane Alliance T-shirt. So what actually the second part, what we worked on, is those ideas that is sort of driving Derax. We at the same time initiated a peer-to-peer community. So I founded it together with Grundfos and Scania, and basically trying to work on these ideas on what data and AI readiness means, how to work data-driven, and basically knowledge share, and start in the same way that we share open source, on GitHub or whatever. We can actually do a lot of this stuff on best practices. How does a data scientist job description look like? How does a recruitment process look like? So basically finding the core topics in like a data science chapter, a data management, data steward chapter, a data engineering chapter, and a more data commercialization chapter. So different dimensions that we then co-create the knowledge share, basically saying, hey, if we have a common lingo and ideas how we work, Scania is working on one part and Grundfos on another part, and then basically we can invest together and we share it together, and it's half the investment. And it has led, Scania and Grundfos, for instance, they've been working on a knowledge graph project this year. That's quite interesting. We build playbooks together and stuff like that. So basically accelerating, how do I understand data ops, right, as a process? What is that all about? So that kind of peer-to-peer community has been another part.
And I'd love to talk more about, the topic of decentralized energy markets and things like that. But I think we should also, pay some attention to the guy that rarely say anything and still is the main brain of the whole thing, which is Goran.
I thought that I'm the guy who says the most things, and I should be basically very quiet.
I think, people would love to hear a bit, who is Goran?
I don't think that I'm that fascinating story behind it. I'm just a humble guy walking amongst the giants.
No,
and
but I beg to differ, because I've heard your stories also from your upbringing and all that whatever has shaped you, Goran, is quite a lot of good stories, I think.
In this context, I think that the light is more on you. But I can share a little bit, basically, not the background and etc. Because I moved to this country around 2016 and started working in an event company immediately, and I fell in love with it somehow, because it's. I was amazed that something really meaningful and very beautiful happens when two people with the same energy and thought and ambition meet. And many people basically believe that going on conferences is like, yeah, I'm going to go and listen to some presentation. Maybe I'm going to meet some people. But when you sit in the background and you see all these people actually meet, not all of them, of course, but those people that actually meet, there is something magical happening behind it. And being able to find those people and to put them into the same place and see how this network grows, I think this is something that really, really amazed me. And I have been blessed and humble actually to meet you two and many other people in this industry, and I think that this is basically what shaped me. So me saying that I'm a humble guy walking amongst the giants, I think it's a good statement against this, because I have worked on so many projects in different industry, everything from e-health to defense to talent management to AI and etc. And there is so big correlations between all of them. It's always some passionate people that basically right now are pricing analysts fighting to make this as a function and screaming that I know what to do, but nobody is basically giving, the true belief in that or the purpose in that function. And especially in enterprises, this is very obvious. So finding and making a conference where you actually can get a number of those people, the smartest people in this area, into same room to discuss a topic that they passionately burn about. Something magical happens there. And that is basically what shapes me. It's basically making people meet, finding interesting people, getting them into an environment where they can further develop or further meet somebody else. Because when they grow, I grow. And that is basically everything I have to say about me.
I mean, you're such a humble person, and I love meeting you and all the things that happened. I think the first time we met was it Data Innovation Summit or was it?
So when I started Hyperite in 2015, I believe you were amongst the first data scientists that I actually called for Data Innovation Summit, and I think this was around like August or September 2015. It was actually you, Errol Kuhlmeister, Robert Luciani.
Right.
When I left actually my ex-company and I started Hyperite, and the Hyperite name is basically hype, the Gartner hype, and then right.
Yes.
The ambition was actually to help organization to mature their analytical capabilities by going through the hype and actually focusing on the things that matters.
Yeah.
And just to close on this, because how I met you is actually why we are doing this today, and this is why I believe this podcast is also very important. So when I met Henrik, he was in a state where basically he was burning about making a difference. But he was also in a pain because he was the loudest in the room and nobody liked it. And there are thousands like Henrik in their own functions that are trying to change something, but they are not. So when we started Hyperite, the first person that I called is actually Henrik. So like, hey, I'm thinking of doing something in this area. He was working in Vattenfall. You undersold yourself in that story because you were one of the most important people there, to my extent. And if you stayed there, you would even, I think that you would have been even bigger. So I called him and I told him, like, I want to make a difference in the area of data. And AI innovation was not even possible at that point of time. It was just simple Data Innovation Summit. I asked him, like, I don't know anything about the topic, but I know that this is going to make a difference. So we were sitting, he booked one of the rooms in Vattenfall, and we had like, it was a very small room, I think around like 3.5 maybe square meters.
One of the conference rooms.
Yeah, conference rooms. And we had like a green marker that was barely functioning, and etc. And we were I still have the picture at home, and he was trying to define to me how this actually work. And I have been blessed as well since small to be quite to having like a photogenic memory and etc. and try to see how things works. So we bounced for an hour and a half how this will look, and he drew some parallels from different conferences that he did, and we realized that we basically had all the substance to do a good korv stroganoff. But we were missing the last ingredient, and the last ingredient was that it was not about the innovation. It was not about what digitalization is. It's about people not understanding the data scientists are going to be the innovators of the future, and you're putting them into a basement, into a dungeon at that point of time, not paying attention to what is happening. Because in Spotify, at that point of time, Google and Airbnb and all of these other companies, this was already visible, and they were fighting for this content. For this talent. But if you looked at Vattenfall at that point of time and many other organizations, this was actually not visible. So what we wanted to do is just like, what if we merge the startup community or the data-driven digital born community like Spotify, Kings, and etc., and merge them with the enterprise and see what is going to happen in this merge of
so really make sure we have speakers
yes.
who can tell the story how Spotify does it,
yes,
and then having people from Vattenfall in the room and going, so it was hardcore on my agenda.
I think,
it's such a big difference, right?
Goran is being overly underestimating his impact on our society and Sweden and the Nordics, and since he's being that humble, I think I have to brag a bit for him. And I think he's like the spider in the web that I think has contributed more than very, very few other people in increasing the level of awareness, what you can do with AI and data. And these all the conferences you are arranging, like the Data Innovation Summit, I guess it's the biggest like in the Nordics about data.
Right now we're number 3 in the world. Actually
3 in the world?
Yeah. So we had like the number, I have something which is called rule number 5 or rule 5. And when we started Hyperite and when we started Data Innovation Summit, the ambition was to be one of the 3 biggest in the world. And the ones that we were chasing after, it was O'Reilly, Media, Sostrata, and in United States, which also continues on the topic that we had before. Sorry about that. And then it was Gartner. So the beginning of Data Innovation was, it's actually really, really important in this area. Oh, Henrik! He did a Henrik on us.
Oh,
come on.
sorry, guys. I wasn't
So I think that it's important to finish the story about data innovation because it shows something which we will discuss a little bit and what we are discussing today. So we were thinking, as I said, like that the biggest ingredients that was missing in this core stroganoff was actually putting the startup companies and the digital-born companies and the old traditional companies in a one team and see basically what is going to happen. Because if you want to go somewhere, you need to see where you're going. And the rapper for that was basically Spotify, Kings, and everybody else, right? And then the idea was actually, let's take people that are super burning for this topic, like Ingo Paz. Shout out to Ingo Paz. That is what I was telling before. Yeah. And then we had Jonas Jordell, and we had like Kerstin and many other, like they are truly, truly passionate about this. So it was a very simple conference to organize. And I called you, Errol, and everybody else. And it was a blessing. But we had some challenges because, first of all, we were supposed to organize an event in Sweden that was in English. Nobody liked it. Even my previous bosses said, like, it is never going to be possible. Just, everybody was doing conferences in Swedish. So, like, I don't understand. How can all the books are in English, but nobody wants to do a conference on English in Sweden? There is no books in Swedish about data science, data mining. We actually called all the universities at that point of time to map if they have a data science courses. Nobody had, except the university in Skövde that was starting on that, which was very interesting. There were only 973 data scientists at that point of time. Do you know how many of there?
30,000 or no?
250 on open search on in the Nordics, right? So it's like potatoes. No offense in that. I think that Jesus basically portrays the maturity. And the last part was when you call people would say, like, why should I go to conference in Sweden now? I will go to Hadoop and Strata in the United States. And I couldn't understand that. So you go to United States, you pay 2,000 euros for entrance. You're going to be out for 3-4 days, which is basically loss for the company. And then on top of that, you have all the travel and etc. So I understand if you're a traveler and you want to travel, this is the best thing ever, right? But if you want to justify something, which is basically, let me now get the world to Sweden, to Stockholm as a capital of the Nordics, and you will pay only 10% of the price. So if it's 2,000 euros, you only pay 200 euros on Data Innovation Summit. Would you buy it? So those are the things that actually went quite nicely into this mix, and we have been doing that since then. So right now, O'Reilly Media definitely this year shut down their conference business because of Corona and moved to digital. They will not be doing any conferences anymore. And Gartner has been a rapper for us, so we have been actually strategically placing our conferences in the same week or the week after Gartner, just to prove that they should, because we believe that, and do not take this offense if you're listening to, and if you're listening to, you should listen a little bit carefully. You are contributing to the hype. And we believe in creating events, and this podcast for me is also taking practitioners who actually work in the area to say what they mean, what they're struggling with, and how we can go further. With all of these things that are happening right now, it's only a hyperinflation of the topic, so we are actually hyping the thing more than usual. And this is then politically incorrect that we are all avoiding the pink elephant in the room. There is so much noise, but actually the people that are truly doing something, their voice is not heard. And these are the practitioners on the field, data managers, enterprise architects, master data managers that have been neglected for the past 15 years and nobody wants to talk with them. The data engineers, the master data, the machine learning engineers that we have had here that have a truly passion to revolutionize industries, but that are part of a political game.
Somehow they don't make it up into the executive rooms where the money is. So the money is spent in one way where it's quite clear you don't need to look so deep that maybe we could spend money smarter, less PowerPoints, more code, as a simple statement.
So I did like quite a lot of negative things there, but my positive thing is that I truly believe that the practitioners or the revolutionaries of today, the innovators,
and it's been funny because you've been very consistent. We said a couple of things I remember in that conference room. So one of the main value propositions, we need to bring the best conferences. Why do we need to travel to the US? We need to bring the best of the best here instead. We need to figure that out.
Exactly.
Number one. Number two, the real legends are the guys working with this that understands it.
It's Sahara, it's Carl Tombe, it's you guys.
And I even remember we did this in Dagens Industri, like that media, we always did an editorial.
Media Planet.
Media Planet. I did a couple of editorials for the Data Innovation Summit, and we talked about the pink elephant. I did a couple of articles, and one of the articles I did was basically, we need to understand what is seemingly very technical operational topics now all of a sudden has a very, very high strategic impact. So executive has never bothered about the architecture of the system landscape. But ultimately, in Scania now, or in Vattenfall, it's a tremendous strategic importance as soon as they say, we will participate in an ecosystem. We have an energy ecosystem, we have a transport ecosystem, telco ecosystem we already know about. There's a banking, ecosystem, and now with Grundfos, I've been learning more about the intelligent water ecosystem. Because whether you like it or not, when this becomes automated, it's data that needs to flow. And then ultimately, the strategic technology choices and how you understand your position is not only a market position, but it becomes an architectural position. It becomes a data standard position you need to take. The telcos figure this out, if you know your 2G's journey to 5G, and you know how fragmented we talked 2G, 3G, CDMA, LTE. It was a bloody mess. And then what you have in Japan. So like 5-10 different standards on protocols to make 2G, 3G work. And now we're down to 1, 5G, in different flavors, but it's 1, right? So, and this needs to happen it will happen around the utility space and smart city space. It will happen in energy. It has to happen. Otherwise, we will not be able to manage this. And all of a sudden now, whether you like it or not, whether we like to build monolithic data lakes or data platforms at home, you are part of an ecosystem, whether you like it or not. And this whole topic now, how we do this, how we orchestrate this, how the data engineers work, how the data scientists work, all of a sudden got into strategic importance.
Yes.
How then to drive that journey and make these voices heard, because they will explain what they need differently than McKinsey or Bain will do to you if you listen to these guys. That's
Exactly.
the problem in a nutshell to me.
It is time to sell PowerPoints. It's time to start working. And
actually,
give the chance to the people that are actually doing quite well.
and the guys who needs to do well.
Here's Salah's last what is called episode that we have. It was beautiful.
Chief data scientist at SAB, right?
Sahara.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's time for us to round up. This was the first thing that we wanted to do, actually. So this is going to be a little bit...
1.5 hours.
Took 1.5 hours.
Well, it's our podcast, so we can do whatever we want.
Today we do what the fuck we want.
Yeah. Okay, so basically I've been trying to do a summary, and I can tell you this is a beautiful... I can organize a conference around
Try
this.
to cut this one, my friend.
So let's
your
try.
turn to give it back to Goran.
Let's try to... No, I have been measuring. So basically we had 15 minutes presentation by Anders, 20 minutes presentation by you, 7 minutes by me, and we are still on the go.
You're the
So, just joking. I think that we are around there. So, but I think we have a clear things. Basically, I'm very proud of what we have accomplished this year, and we will talk a little bit more about why we are doing this, because I think for many it's important this, and we have been receiving quite a good feedback from people, constructive feedback as well, how to improve and etc. So, and we can talk about this ambition, but I think that what we have accomplished this year is to I think that the idea when we all three got together was actually only one. Let's try to demystify AI and AI innovation and what it means by introducing people that are actually working with it today, the heroes of today. And I think we have accomplished that to some extent. Of course, we have a number of topics that we can talk to, but this is going to be a little bit of a monologue right now. But these are the topics. Just hear it out, and then we can discuss about repeated themes and all of these things. So the first one was actually to demystify AI. So we discussed like what is AI, what data and AI driven actually means, why should companies focus on it. The AI landscape today, why it's so hard to start with AI, why do some companies succeed and others fail with it. This is like a subsection of the first principle part that we spoke with Mikael Klingvall, machine learning and the first principle thinking in research. This was with Gabriel, I believe. How to accelerate AI throughout the organization, AI strategy, and how to insert AI into day-to-day business operation. This was the last one with Salah Franzen. Data infrastructure in a modern tech company. This was with Sahar Asadi. We spoke about data factory, the next level of being data driven with Lale. The same topic we discussed with Lale, we discussed as well. What does it mean to be data driven, or does that mean to be cloud driven as well? And then if you want to follow up on that, you can listen to Petronella Posti about moving to cloud, the benefits, the challenges, and the lift and shift that Henrik liked very much. I believe that was the t-shirt that we were looking for.
Lift and shift.
Okay.
Forget lift and shift.
Then we move a little bit more to organizational topics, and here we talked a little bit with difference between analytics and AI. This was Luca when he was here. What is data scientist? Carl Tomé, highly recommended session. I think there's so much energy.
I think he was the sharp at defining, I'm not the data scientist, I'm not the machine learning,
Yes,
really,
exactly.
to really look.
But it's such a great energy as well to have. I love that when we have like high energy people in this podcast. Data scientists versus ML engineers. This is actually Mikael Klingvall.
Mikael Klingvall did a good job.
I'm very sad that we couldn't, that we had to cut the
had
realm
some noise
of data.
issue.
Yeah, the realm of data noise. The realm of data science is actually, it was my fault because the camera that we had at that point of time, it was just, I thought that I was showing it, but it was not. I didn't set it up. But we will record it, and we re-record it and send it. Then we spoke about centralized and decentralized versus decentralized data science teams. This was also with Mikael Klingvall. The tech stack for data science, this was with Salah last week, as well as how to recruit data scientists and ML career path, and how to find AI talent with Sahar as well. Then we spoke about research and more technical discussions. We talked about difference between research and product teams. We talked about taking AI research into production. Maintenance of machine learning projects that I would like to discuss more in the future, because I think that people are a little bit blinded. They think this is going on air. If you have read the latest this scandal with the Google AI ethics research team, you will see the cost of that. So. Yes, exactly. I think Sahar actually recommended her to be part of this podcast, which was very interesting. The hidden technical depth in machine learning systems, that was with Lars Albertsson. Programming languages and how to be efficient in building ML systems. This was with Robert. Natural language processing, Word2Vec and transformers, Robert Luciani as well. What is self-supervised learning with Carl Tomé? How to efficiently program software. Can ML help? This was with Mikael Klingvall. The research behind generative pre-trained transformer 3 or GPT-3. This was with Luca. The fundamental research versus applied research. With Gabriel Skanse, beautiful session. Yeah. I think that it was one of one of my top favorite guests. Actually, so
very informative.
Yes, very big admiration and.
The only point we should have had is robot here. I'm really pissed off that we missed
the fur hat.
The fur hat.
Then we
That
have
would've been cool.
starting research teams in an enterprise. I think that this skunk work that we were discussing last week with Salah, it was
cool,
amazing.
super cool.
What does a lead AI researcher do? And this we discussed with Sahara Sadi. Then we talked about use cases. I wish we can put more use cases, because I saw in the thread that we were actually doing on every episode that we shift, but actually if you look at these 5 themes are still, you can divide it. So we discussed the purpose of AI in the public sector with Luis. It's a guest that I believe that we should have her on the program in the future. Love her energy. I think that she was amazing.
She is, where she ends up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. We talked about in the first episode, I think, and it was around Amazon coming to Sweden and how this is going to influence the retail business and etc. So far, they have been very quiet. My wife bought something from through them yesterday for Christmas. I was a little bit annoyed by that, but it doesn't matter. AI in transport. I mean, in the future we will buy, but right now. I don't know. AI in transport and disruptive thinking. This was Patrick Coach, actually. It's actually one of our biggest ambassadors, I think. So shout out to Patrick. I think he did amazing job.
He's sharing.
Can AI democratize music? This was with Carl Tomé. ML and game development, Sahara. How to use AI to solve logistics problem. Robert Luciani and Fox Rain, they are working on some very great product that should be up next year, I believe. Future of consultancy and freelancing. Henrik, I believe you had a blast with Petronella Posti about that.
Exactly.
Robotics and how a robot works. We spoke about IoT and 5G as an accelerator for data and AI innovation. This was Daniel Lewis. I need to redo his video though, that because on one sentence sequence is the sound is missing, but we have it as a double, so we'll re-edit over the Christmas. AI as innovation engine for disruptive companies. That was Arpteg Gatami. Beautiful session as well. A lot to learn. Great energy as well. And
interesting to contrast U.S. university with Swedish.
Yes,
he had some ideas.
Actually, I should have him in the research part a little bit more, but it's what is called because some of the topics that we discussed, that it was actually truly amazing. And I love his sincerity that basically the research is all about money. Okay? And the reason why we are failing is because we don't have the money. And the reason why we don't have the money is because we don't invest enough. So right now, France is investing, Canada is investing, UK is investing, and most of the countries are investing. And all of those, you will find them in the DIG research report. Those are the companies that we countries that we look up to. And the reason why we look up to, because they have the money. And I think that he was spot on that. And then basically we discussed other topics, which was actually a very, very nice thing. So we talked about AI ethics. We talked about Robert Luciani's famous statement that people are bad in ethics. I think it's a t-shirt. Diversity bias in data. Regulation and leveling up playing field for competition in the digital era. That was Patrick Coach as well. How do we get more women to tech? That was Sahara and Salah as well.
And also Petronella.
I mean, this is a repetitive. These are all I haven't put all of them, but it's basically repetitive themes that we have. And then we had some philosophical themes that Anders masters quite heavily. And that was... we spoke with Luis, what is AI and the relationship to God. So all of you that haven't heard, that haven't listened to this section, you should definitely listen to that. I love Patrick, and we discuss psychedelics, AI, and human potential. Right now in Sweden, we have a company that is actually heavily lobbying and investing in utilizing psychedelics.
And it's been examined as a proper medicine.
Yes, and so they have a backup from, I don't know, Klarna owners or something like that. I think it was somebody. This is verified actually, what is called information. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But there is a big startup backup behind this research, and we can put actually the link.
Proper research
proper
being
research,
done.
yes, exactly.
To study this, what the effects are. So
with Carl Tomé, we discussed singularity. Is this a positive or negative? And I believe we discussed this as well with
singularity
a couple of guys. Luca as well.
One of my sort of repeating questions to end the.
It's nice end philosophical kind of question.
So do we have a date when this is going to happen?
Many dates.
We have several dates. Do we have
75?
Do we have a winner date so far? I'm not sure.
Okay, let's do. Let's accumulate this over a couple of seasons. So let's see. The beautiful thing is that we learn about RoboCup.
Right.
I think I never thought about that. That was very interesting for me.
With Sahar, I guess.
Sahar
Yes,
is
Sahar.
avid robot cup.
Yes.
Football, robot football.
We had Mia Shriver, and we talked gig economy, data, and AI divide. And AI divide is actually one of the major things that we have discussed over the and I believe is going to be even more impactful next year on the next season. We discussed AI in elections and mortal analytics during the COVID-19 with Lars Albertsson. If you haven't heard that, Lars actually did a presentation on data innovation, and I believe it's available on online right now. This mortal analytics during COVID-19.
Is that on YouTube or is it via Hyperite?
Not ours, but Lale usually publish himself. He has like I think he published on a even on the session he actually explained where he has it. But if you cannot find it, you just basically text me or message us on YouTube or whatever, and we will share it with you. It's a beautiful example of how wrong can you be when using wrong data from beginning. And we have 4 more, and these are famous conversational systems with Gabriel Scanse, physical versus digital interactions and telepresence, which was basically the basics of Furhat, if I understood correctly. And then we were talking about globetrotting with Daniel Lewis, and then we had the pleasure to speak with Arpteg Getami and pick his brain and experience around AI. Podden and the podcast that he's organizing. So if you see, this is like 3 pages or 2 pages basically of topics.
And what's the themes? You said we have 5 themes.
So the 5 themes is basically what is AI and the implication to society and enterprises. The importance of research both in outside the enterprise, inside and outside the
second.
research. Yes.
Third.
Then we had a little bit more technical and organizational discussions. First of all, organizational discussions around how to organize AI and data science team in an enterprise or any type of organization. What does that actually mean in order for them to contribute or provide a value or maximum value for the organization? And then we discussed some latest developments in the technical sphere,
I mean, right? so the theme here, organizational technical, is really also a deep dive on what techniques some of our guests are using.
Yes,
which is really interesting to see hardcore what is used.
It's quite a big thing, right? And then just to finalize this, so if you just a question, so then we were discussing different use cases, and I believe that we should incentivize a little bit more use cases, because people learn through something that is inspirational or get motivated by something that is motivational, but learn something that is applicable.
I'm talking about concrete examples.
Yes.
I think
concrete use cases, but then also actually follow them through the whole way. So starting from the business problem and then actually starting to understand what they have built.
I mean, it's so easy to become very abstract to speak about like non-concrete terms. Just exemplify things makes everything so much clearer.
Exactly. People need to find that. I can relate to this, because if you cannot relate to something, then you don't like it, you don't love it, you're not passionately attracted to it. I think that the other topics, which is basically the AI ethics, diversity, how to recruit talent, how to get more women, and diversity, I would say not women, but diversity in general in tech is very important, because as we discussed about
gender
bias.
as well, you said not gender, but
bigger than
not
gender,
only gender, but bigger than that.
Yes.
Diversity,
gender,
I
of
believe,
course,
is
but
something
diversity is a bigger topic.
Yes, because I believe that more diverse we are, more less biased we get into the data.
Yeah.
And I think that Stephen Probst on Data Innovation said this many times, and many other people actually said this as well. So, but of course, it's two different topics, but I would see that diversity is actually something that we need to lift up more and more.
I think so.
Especially as we are moving to the gig economy, etc. And the last one, I would not like to take out of this in the season 2. I would like to actually intensify on the philosophical themes and personal topics.
Personal and philosophical topics we need to increase.
Because you learn who the person actually is.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing, and mind-blowing in some way, how
when
many
you
topics
summarize it like this,
we have actually covered. And, if we could simply build an AI on top of this that says, if you have a question, just find, the exact clip in all these kind of podcasts where you can hear some potential answers.
And an NLP question box, chatbot that brings out the 5-minute snippet.
Yes.
Or sort out
really
the 10
this,
snippets.
This is one of my specialties. So that's
if we take this as a chapters in a book, you have already a 300-400 pages book. And I believe this is amazing.
maybe we should do that one then. We should use GPT-3 to write the book for us.
No, don't say things. So people will actually believe you when you say that. It's horribly bad. That's okay.
But I believe
I
I was sitting yesterday night and writing this, and I was so amazed actually, because when you divide it like this, it creates so much value.
Yeah. But what is your key takeaways, guys? So you summarized this and you wrapped it up and you basically did the inventory and you pulled out themes, right? How would you summarize the first season of 15 if this was Goran's attempt?
I mean, I'm a techie person. I like the tech topics. I love the research topics. I love the philosophical topics, and these type of discussions I think is super fun. And I wish we could have more of them.
Yeah,
but it's also, I think, very informative for me to hear, from other sides and other topics that I may not otherwise, talk that much about or hear that much about. So I certainly think you learn a lot by simply being, a host in these kind of things.
Being present.
Yeah. And it really expands your view and gives an holistic view that you otherwise won't have. So I certainly learned a lot.
And I try to convince this to my wife at home why I need to spend every Thursday with the boys. You're just with the boys drinking beer. Yes, but no. The point is this: to be as a host here, I can't stop now because it's almost addictive, the learning curve. And the learning curve is both that you can try your own reflections and hear other opinions on it. And then I think you contextualize more and more how things really work by hearing different angles on the same problem. Because one of my key takeaways is that the fundamental problems that we are circling around are fairly fundamental headaches that we all have in different ways. But we go about them in different ways. My role is slightly this, or your role is slightly that. But it comes back to sort of some of the fundamentals that we are to crack the code of doing this in a more structured or I would call it industrialized way or a factory way that seems to be very hard. And I've been able to bring these conversations back. I have already noticed how they have shaped me in my rhetoric that I have used professionally. I mean, I was really proud when you talked about the hearing, when you went to the parliament and talked about this, and actually a couple of key new words that almost it's not our words, but we really at least push them. Yeah. The data and AI divide. Yes. I don't know anyone who has said it more explicit than we have.
Yeah. And it's playing on the world for the digital divide, but now going into another
dimension
version of it.
Yeah, but it's the digital divide is something else.
Yeah. I actually Googled AI divide, and it's written what is called completely
different, I guess.
It's a little bit more general and fluffy. It's basically divide between different capabilities. But it's not defined.
But we have sort of called out the fundamental macro problem, and the point is this. I've had with Christian Rasmusson in Grundfos, when I started Derdax. So one of the passions behind starting the company and why we want to build a peer-to-peer community and all this kind of stuff that he was very much instrumental in founding. I met a soulmate in terms of saying, I want to build a good business. I want to work with this, but I think this is of societal concern that if we don't deal with this properly now, the job market, if you get disrupted by someone else, is so much worse for society. And so for me, that data and AI divide, the way we have framed it, literally, has been with me since I started Derdax. And so I think we have sort of taken and really called out the big pink elephant in the room. Everybody knows it, right? But I think talk like this is good. And then also the prototype graveyard.
Yeah, that's an awesome topic.
And by the way, you need airplanes.
Yes.
You need to put pilots in the airplane to make them fly. So that was the joke.
See, you need to move from prototype to pilot, right? Yeah.
Airplane,
then it becomes an airplane.
So airplane community is founded on one topic: how do we move away from the prototype graveyard? And it was a joke when we did the first. How do we build this community? What should we call it? And then Christian said, we should call it airplane. We have too many pilots flying around in Grundfos. We need to put them in an airplane to make them fly. And then afterward we did the acronym AI ready production in a lean, agile, networked enterprise. But that was the joke afterwards.
Awesome. It connects to one of the mottos that we heard a number of times, like commit to deploy.
All right. Oh, now, let's go here now. What's the t-shirts? So what's the key statements? So now we're almost getting into the key takeaways and into the key statements. Should we go there now?
I think it was memorable statements or...
memorable statements.
Yes.
And then I asked, I don't know if you like it, but I love, what was the statements we could put on a t-shirt, right? That was the sort of the framing, right? Yeah. And then let's start with, I think this is the best, almost.
Yeah, it connects to airplane. And the prototype graveyard that we heard now a number of times, both in the parliament discussions we had and in other situations. And just to contextualize it, which I'm not always so good at, but I can try to do, is that, you have a lot of companies that say that they want to use AI. You have a lot of companies that say that they do use AI. But when you really look into it, what they mainly do is potentially having a plan for it, potentially building a prototype, potentially actually building a prototype that provides value. But very, very few, if any, very few at least, are actually moving from a prototype into a pilot or production. And that is a big problem and something that the tech giants are really good at, but most other companies fail at. So how to get away from the prototype graveyard? One way could be simply commit to deploy.
Yeah, and who said it?
It was Luca,
Luca Peltorian, CEO. He was like, and then when I heard that's a T-shirt, and I asked Anders, how would you write commit to deploy in Python? How would you do it?
I should fix that.
I need that T-shirt, by the way. Yeah. So I love that.
Yeah, I think one way to just explain what it means is to say, you sometimes think too long. You wait too long to try it out in real. But by actually putting it in production and deploying it, you start getting data from what people actually do like or companies do like. And it's only when you start to do that in a very fast, iterative, agile way that you actually can build something that works.
Yeah.
So simply deploy fast and often.
Yeah, deploy fast and often. But let's now continue to contextualize and weave commit to deploy into other conversations we had, because there's another angle on this that is almost equally important. And it relates back to the conversation we had with Lale. And to understand, with Lars Albertsson, we talked about the picture, the classical picture where the machine learning piece is just this little piece. And then you have all the different things you need in your tech stack to make it work in production. The problem when you're doing pilots is you're trivializing what is really the hard stuff.
Yeah, the supporting system.
Yeah, so the supporting infrastructure and setup to around the use case lifecycle to actually take something out of prototype or notebook style into production style, which then for me, and I'm going to keep selling, right? When we created Airplane, we basically, one of the founding ideas is that how does the common lingo and ways of working look like if we don't take a prototype approach, but if I from the beginning understand, I always have a use case lifecycle, very much founded on Eric Rice's lean startup philosophy to iterate fast and pivot. And how do I do that if I'm everything I start has the potential to become a unicorn feature, right? Everything has, when I start something, it should have the idea and potential to go to production, but I should then weed out my bad ideas early, right? But it's a different mindset how you build projects when you say, I need to think about production environment or how to maintain and operate my algorithm from the beginning. Yeah. And this is to me commit to deploy, that you actually also yes, we need to start small. Yes, we need to do the right stuff. We shouldn't do the big bang. That's not what I'm saying. But it's the mindset that we are iterating to production. Yeah,
go to the end in the beginning.
Yeah.
That's sound like a contradiction in terms, but it really doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, if you take a lot of junior data scientists, they think, it's so easy to use AI. You just, follow a curious tutorial and you build a model and that's it. How hard can it be? And so many people underestimate the amount of work you have to do to truly operationalize AI. And the only way to really figure that out and learn how to make it better is to very quickly move it into some real, perhaps not fully productionized, but at least something that interacts with the rest of the systems and the users.
Yeah, and also, let's take another angle on commit to deploy. If what you are playing around with is not so needed or useful, so you have a sponsor that are willing to change their process and use it in everyday life, why the hell are you spending money on it?
Yeah.
Then it's a playground, and this is also goes into the problem with incubators and all that. And the real business is working on these problems. This is what the P&L owner wants. And here we are now with a pseudo manager or a director of AI, and he doesn't really connect to the P&L problem.
Yeah.
So it's many angles.
I wish more people had the experience of really trying to work with an already productionized system and seeing, okay, I have this system. It's the first version. Now I want to improve it. And I see all these problems happening. And that type of experience is very few people that have.
Yeah.
And the more that get that type of experience by committing to deploy, I think will be a huge benefit to so many companies.
Yeah. Good. Next quote. Are we done with that quote?
Yeah.
Fairly good.
Yeah, I think so. The AI divide, I guess we already covered that.
How do we make a t-shirt out of that?
So we put A and then a speed divide and I and then in between.
Yeah, but we also need to make, and it has to be, fight AI divide, skate or die, AI divide, fight, the non-smoking generation. It has to be something like that.
I have an idea, but we will take this after.
In the afterward.
But the AI divide.
For me, mine, I think that is what's your first principle.
All right.
Because I think that this was amazing that we pick up, because I think it's we discussed a lot of topics as well, how to build a startup and all these other things as well, which I believe that is very important. But and I have seen this so many times organizing these conferences where basically organizations are buying technology like it's almost this mentality of like, I need to buy a Maserati because my neighbor has a Porsche. And then the other neighbor comes and asks you like, yeah, but why did you buy the Maserati? You don't even have like a driver's license. Where are you planning to go? So if you don't have ambition, you don't have the driver's license, but you just bought a Maserati, you just basically bought an item and a debt, nothing else.
And you follow the norm.
Exactly. You follow the hype.
Yes.
Because it's important. It's your ego that is actually buying it. It's not your sense.
And here we come back to what is also frustrating with the industry that we are selling on hype and instead of selling on what really matters. Or we are, and it's not that the tech is wrong, it's that we're entering into the topic. We're not with the first principle or basic understanding for what we're trying to do.
Yeah, but, well, I mean, you cannot blame the industry, because the industry has been, their purpose is to learn how to sell. So if somebody is basically buying the technology to get the guilt out, then that's what is you going to sell.
It's sad that way of selling works.
Yes, exactly. That is how it works. So it is how it is. And but my point with what is your first principle is actually how many of these data science AI projects are actually done with a meaningful, true first principle. What are you trying to accomplish? Okay, why are you using this data? You know, where are you going with this? We had this discussion with Daniel, right?
Yeah.
With Gabriel. No, with Daniel. I think. Daniel
Lewis is talking about
and I think it's really, really important, because it applies to, if you're starting a startup, why are you doing it? Okay, when you started Dare Ducks, you were discussing, like, if somebody wakes you up, or somebody basically says in a bar, you know, hey, Henrik, where are you working for? Where are you working? And then you need to explain, hey, you know, I work for Dare Ducks, and then in 120 words you need to explain what are you actually doing.
What's the first principle?
And that is your first principle. So,
which is hard, still hard to
exactly.
put on paper, I must tell you.
So if you take like any type of a AI project, anything that is it's like and ask them, like, what are you trying to accomplish? And if you cannot explain that in 120 words, probably is not a good idea either. And to take one step further, it's not about the data scientist building the project, it's actually the CEO of the company seeing where he is going. Because this is very important, and we've named many times, and I think that David Adun and many other, we have basically right now a gap between data illiterate leaders trying to lead companies into a data and AI economy. Yeah. And some of them are humble to learn, and some of them have not even went to the elements of AI, because that is beyond below their belt. Yeah. And until we have leaders like that have zero vision about what is their true first principle, and apply that to the AI technological development or era that we are working with, we are going to continue to have a problem. So it's not the AI divide that is a problem, it's the leggers and the people that are actually leading them.
I agree, because how many times do we work on the new, you know, we need to do AI, but why do we need to do AI? And how are you really fundamentally rethinking your process, rather than someone is sort of adding a little sugar on top of the analog way.
I hate, so many people saying, they are working with AI and they try to like sprinkle AI on some
sugar
existing like business process. But in reality, are just doing it for the hype and not for truly believing and understanding what the potential truly are. And that, I think, is a fundamental problem of so many companies today.
Yeah, we talked about this even in Scania. Let me share how we talked about how do you set up goals and targets with the 10x ambition. So another way of putting it, if you truly want to do first principle, it is that you're trying to do something fundamentally different and better. So as long as we
perhaps we should define it properly. We talked about it a number of times, but just for people that don't understand.
Now that tunes into this. Okay, let's start there then.
Yeah. And we usually speak about Elon Musk in very positive terms, and he's not always doing everything right, but he's doing a lot of things right and can certainly sell in a good way. But I think in one way to phrase it is, to have the courage to do something that goes against the norm, not the normal way of doing things, and solve things by truly understand the core principles, the first principles of physics or of business or technology or whatnot. But understanding what the core principles are is essential to be able to solve something with first principle in mind.
And examples is always good to contextualize. And then let me try to do it this time.
Awesome.
Because you usually do it. Yes. I mean, we have two, if you look at YouTube, you can find Elon talking about first principle around Tesla or around SpaceX is the best examples. Yeah. So one YouTube clip, he basically says, first, he used the word first principle, which is actually a philosophical term first. But what he means then is basically looking at how is batteries made and why does batteries cost, $100 per kilowatt hours. I don't know the KPI, and he pulls down the construct and looking at the raw material and says like it should only cost $10, and then understanding how can we do the process so we do not end up at $80 per battery but $15. And the same goes with SpaceX. We are shooting up rockets and basically we are crashing the rockets and we are crashing the fuel tanks of the rockets, and they are 90% of what the rocket is all about in cost. So what if we can land the rocket so we can reuse the fuel tanks?
Yeah.
And so fundamentally rethinking the core problem, and it goes with his other
but
and this is first principle.
We can go a little bit home with this. IKEA.
Yeah, IKEA did this.
Simple.
They rethought. Ingvar Kamprad applied first principle to the furniture industry.
Exactly.
That's what it did.
So I think that we don't have to discuss that much. You just think about IKEA and that's it.
Yeah.
You remove the assembly line, you remove everything, you make happiness to people because they can build frustration as well sometimes. I have actually screwed my entire cabinet to the floor twice.
But let us. I want to put the frame now. Why has first principle made such an impact on this podcast so far? I mean, we've talked about it a lot. My take on that is that what we are dealing with now, when we're coming into a data and AI society, is this classical topic that we have different types of domains: offentliga sektorn, public sector, your car manufacturer, energy, and then you have a fundamental other domain of data and AI. If in the simplest term, the way I see the future world is that the new world companies is going to live in this intersect. This is the classical Venn diagram. You can make it with 2 or 3, but if in simplest term, domain versus data AI capability, and where if I now take this new domain of data and AI, and I truly think first principle of the domain problem, what does that then become?
It goes back to also, how do we really accelerate AI in a good way? And then, domain experts, they understand, how a floor grinder machine works,
yes,
or how
trading works,
how radiology, experts
how energy
can build
works.
a treatment plan for cancer patients, and energy for sure, and so forth. And
building a truck.
The problem then is this kind of catch-22 problem that domain experts don't understand AI, and AI experts don't understand the domain.
This is what is happening. The new future, our companies will emerge, whether you like it or not.
So the option you have then, if you have this kind of catch-22, where you don't understand AI or you don't understand domain, you have 2 choices. Either you, or perhaps more, but at least you can think of 2 choices, which is either you learn all the domains to the data scientists, or you learn AI to the domain experts. Now the problem with the first one is that, of course, it's not scalable for people to know all the domains. You can't know everything about finance. You can not know everything about sales, about manufacturing, about some product, and so forth. So that's not scalable. The other problem, of teaching AI to domain experts is that AI is hard and tooling is horrible today, especially for the latest AI. So if we can make AI more accessible to people, then we do truly have the ability to accelerate AI. And if we can enable AI for domain experts, the scale and acceleration we can see for AI, I think, is immense. So I think that's the best way forward. And that can truly, make first principle thinking work, because then you have the domain expert that understand the core principles, the first principles,
exactly,
and apply AI to it.
But let me disagree.
Okay.
And I don't disagree. I disagree. You to disagree now.
Yes.
Because in my point, this is one part of the puzzle, and this is one part of the solution, which is essentially then saying we need to go on a journey to simplify and to make this technology usable by domain expert. And I went to a Gartner conference. You used to say this is true and this is correct, but then I will disagree. At the Gartner conference, by the way, a couple of years back, the opening keynote was about how do we go from scarcity to abundance. And then we highlighted the example was we have an abundance of data, but scarcity of valuable insights in production. And then the topic was, what are the mechanisms that allows us to go from scarcity to abundance? And then the example that I have highlighted, and I even did this talk on the data innovation stage, if you can find it on YouTube, is that if you take the internet example, and you know how internet was created even, I don't know if it's in the mid-70s, the DARPANet and all that kind of stuff. And what is, and if you would ask the normal person, the normal Joe, when did internet come? And we will all say, it was around 95, 96, because that's when we as normal people remember the Netscape browser, stuff like this.
Yeah,
right?
but the web also was born then. So in some sense, I think it is also correct to say, when something becomes popular, that's truly when something starts to happen.
But let me make the point. So the point was, at some point here, it wasn't green screen and you needed to code and be able to put the prompts in, but you actually went to a GUI for as a web browser. The whole web was invented. So all of a sudden, what happens is that you create a simplified technology or experience that allows them, as this example,
enabling technology.
Enabling technology, or hiding the complexity of the technology for the user to use it, which is essentially what you are saying.
Yep.
Now, I think this is one thing that we need to push on for, and I applaud Paltarion for doing this work. But I equally think also, the way I've talked about this is that we don't need to have data literacy from the domain expert, and we don't need to have domain expertise from the data scientist. We need to have new core literacy. So we need to basically understand that ultimately the whole organizational setup, so irregardless of what you do with your tech stack, the fundamental IT operating model has changed. So when your core process is not an analog process anymore, but it's automated first. And we understand the way we work is like, you had automation of muscle power, production lines, industrialization.
But it is automation by data still, right?
Yeah, automation. So if I contrast, we're talking about automation.
I have a question.
No, automation of brain power will mean that people will not physically move data. We will work in different roles. So actually what roles you have in the company will change. So regardless when it happens, and Paltarion is part of that journey to make this happen, it has fundamentally shifted your organizational structure anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's not sufficient with changing tools. It's so much more that's what I'm
required. That was
the organizational change.
And that was my disagreement.
So my question to you,
agree with you
to both of you, is my question to both of you, is this a short-term solution or it's a long-term solution? So what you are saying is that basically neither the data scientist doesn't have to be a domain specific, and the domain specific doesn't have to be data literate or a data scientist. No, but if you combine them together, you get a competence that you can actually. Is that what you said?
I'm saying like this. By nature of force, the technology will be, the complexity will be hidden. So in the end, you need to understand what the Monte Carlo simulation is or what a CNN does, but you don't need to code it. That's a fundamental technical trend that has been going on in everything to make usability clearly, right? It's still not enough. And it doesn't, if any companies out there sits and says, you know what, this is too complex, so I'm not going to try it the hard way. I'm going to wait until Paltarion's software is ready in 5 years and then I will try it. Fuck that, I say. So, because equally you need to work on the operational setup.
My point with
you
this
need
is
to
that,
start work. Basically, we need to start with the most complex tools. Yes, they will be more simple. We need to start working in a different way in cross-functional teams. We need to have a common lingo. So if these guys speak Python and these guys who are doctors speak Latin, we kind of need to invest in a common lingo and start working cross-functional anyway.
Is this a long-term solution or it's a short-term solution?
Short-term now, you need to understand that this is a cross-functional problem. There is not a business process and data process anymore. They are converging. Yes. And the sooner you start working according to that idea, whatever that is, however yxigt or shitty it is, you are learning and becoming data and AI ready, and you will just accelerate it when the tool set and technologies get better.
So
that's
I believe
my
that
opinion.
both of you are correct, but he is talking about the short-term solution that we need to have right now in a place, because centralized data science doesn't work for most of the organization, and the future is in decentralized, basically having domain experts with data scientists, machine learning, data engineers, and etc. And what you are saying is what is the long-term, I believe, vision is having the...
I don't know.
No?
Actually,
They are both.
I think actually you can. I think it's very dangerous to say that you should wait for a centralized solution to be finished before you start using AI.
No. I think that if I understood you correctly, you are saying that you give the AI to the domain expert.
Yes.
Okay, and that is the long term.
It's not that long term. I can give you examples, but let me rephrase it another way.
Okay, good. Okay.
One way, we have this big, research project working with building up a Swedish language model for Swedish authorities, and we had this big reference group meeting with all Swedish authorities last week, and we said, we can provide some data, or some models, but then we started to think, but for people, in some, for example, Swedish authority, like tax authority, they're actually really good. So that's not
they are
good.
quite good.
But you can take Bolagsverket, or you can take whatever kind of authority you can think of. We want to enable, AI and data readiness for them. And then it's not enough to provide the data. It's not enough to provide a model. It's not enough to provide the code to do that. What you need to have is, for one, to have like a set of best practices of how really to do this.
You're giving them a Maserati.
And the business understanding of how do you actually bring value into your business for doing so. That is so often forgotten. And I think, someone says, I published it on GitHub. It's done. Now you use it.
Exactly.
That is not enough. And I think, if you can start combining all of these things.
Now we are converging into the discussion. So you're providing them a Maserati, but they don't have a driver's license.
Exactly.
And this is why he's too humble, right? Why do you ask me and Anders to sit in this podcast? Because ultimately, I'm trying to crack the idea around orchestration. That is what my head the last 7 years has been around. How does this operating model really works? And how do I used to joke, and people who know me knows I use this both in Vattenfall and Scania, and I sometimes say it's like, well, what do you do? Well, I'm Don Quixote. I like to fight weather mills. I get a kick out of fighting weather mills. As I'm going into why are we organizing and orchestrating our IT supply, data scientists and business in this way? Why are we separating them? Why aren't we working in a similar use? Which is very, very down fundamental to the agile team. And if you've been in a company like Spotify, you don't. This is not a problem, right?
No, there were a lot of problems there as well. But
it's nothing in comparison to an analog company that is trying to have IT, and it's essentially it's an analog company which is computerized on top.
Yeah, it's lift and shift there as well.
Yeah. So and you now and I have this is my understanding, and when you take me down the journey in your beautiful world with Call to Me or something like that, I don't know shit of what you are talking about in detail, but I know enough to follow it. Yeah. But I think it really accentuates these things need to merge. I need to learn more and more and more about this space. And the data scientists who are, geeky in the process of data science actually needs to understand the operating governance model of their company.
But I think, what really needs to happen to have this inflection point where AI becomes of value is when people that are not data scientists, that doesn't understand the, intricacy or whatever kind of technical thing, start to understand the potential that AI and data can provide, and start to understand how to actually do that, how to implement that. When that happens, then we will see an inflection point.
And this is the abundance mechanism. And for that reason, I think what you are talking about is fundamentally the right way to go with super hard effort to simplify, to do that.
But tooling is one thing. It's not the only thing, but I think it's a super important enabling thing, but not sufficient.
Yeah. So, but I would say, I have another pet, we rant. We talk in Sweden about open data. And I say,
What open data?
I mean, like in the public sector, we say, are we going to spend a lot of time? We're going to make data open.
But what open data?
Yeah, and then the point is this: if you understand concepts like data mesh or building data products, to have open data is not the point. This is one point that it's available, but then it's the process. How is this data servable? How is it searchable? How is the operating model going to work around that?
Yeah, but the open data is basically like self-driving vehicles, right? The capability is here, but until you build the lane for self-driving vehicles, the self-driving vehicles trend can never go, because you cannot mix self-driving vehicles with humans.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is, like,
you don't create the path.
This is a key
You're just
ingredient.
creating a car. What is
enabler technology, enabler öppna data, that we have data we can use is a key enabler, but you need to have the glue. You need to have something
that
I think
allows
it's
my time to disagree a bit here as well.
Thank you.
I need to quote Ingo Pass. He says, like, he said this very well. It's time for us to invest in building highways and infrastructure of paths. The rest of it will come. And I think that we are doing differently. We are building cars. We are building Maseratis, but we don't build the pavements. We don't build the infrastructure around it.
Yeah, but for me, the infrastructure topic, let's disagree.
We are on 2:10, and I have two more things that I need to cover in this.
Okay. No, but just a quick comment on that. I think it's really dangerous if we become dependent on open data.
Yeah.
I think, what we really need to do to accelerate AI is to enable closed data. And I would say we will see an inflection point and acceleration in AI the time that we have techniques and understanding, but primarily techniques to actually work with closed data in a good way. And there are a lot of things like federated learning, etc., that enables that. So if we instead can stop focusing so much on open data, which EU is doing, and start enabling techniques to work with closed data set, we will see an acceleration.
But you weren't disagreeing with me here. I was making the open data example to highlight that even if we have open data, we still need to have the highways and the infrastructure and the processes and ways of working to be able to share data. But
I think I disagree in the same poor way that you disagreed with me.
Because we don't disagree. I want to disagree and get some more energy.
I believe that we can
to have closed data that can interact or find.
It's time to start basically doing a closure of this.
Good one.
Yes.
From my point, I would like to conclude this session with Carl Tomé said, like, I think that a couple of years from now, everybody needs to know how to do ML or something like that. Otherwise, their job or whatever it is redundant.
It will become a ubiquitous, like, natural thing of any kind of product.
Which comes to, we didn't have a chance to present actually our mission statement, but I think that we will do that a little bit later on. Right now, what I would like to do is very short, 3 trends that you think it will happen in 2021, that you see, trends that you see emerging.
Should I start a bit? I don't have a structured and prioritized list here in any way, but I think it's hard to speak about these things without bringing up Corona.
Yes. If you're looking at from a technical point of view, where Corona doesn't have, and this is your area. So this is your area, right?
Don't limit. No, don't limit him.
Okay,
don't limit
fine.
him.
Okay.
Don't fuck it. Don't limit him.
Okay, fine.
No, but Corona, of course, is disruptive in many ways, and has forced companies to change the way they work, and forced companies to change business models, and has killed a lot of companies, and will continue to have an extreme economical impact, and we have lost a lot of jobs. It's been a truly disruptive event, if you call it that. In some way, people call AI a disruptive event. It will change the jobs, and it will create new jobs, hopefully more, which Gartner and other things at least. And it will disrupt, the way you work. It disrupts the business model you have. So in some way, these kind of disruptions, the question is then, can we find some kind of symbiosis between them? I think we can. And I think, we have already seen that, we had a number of AI use cases for detecting, for example, Corona outbreak, like Blue Dot, etc. But it wasn't really taken seriously, and it wasn't really used. So, we couldn't really detect Corona in time. we couldn't really use AI that much for like drug discovery, and it was actually exceptional how quickly we actually were or are able to build up a vaccine, but it still, took a lot of time and resources to do so. And now we've seen, after the event, with AlphaFold 2, etc., that, AI can be an immensely useful tool to more quickly be able to discover drugs and medicines for different diseases. And, I think, also if you see the extreme, workload that we are seeing in healthcare in these days, obviously AI can be a very, very useful tool to simply make the whole, administrative processes that a lot of doctors and nurses have to do today so much more efficient. And then speaking about the whole economy and everything, we can speak about this in so many terms. But I think this is actually a good opportunity, even though Corona was obviously very, very sad from so many viewpoints. But the way that we have forced to disrupt the whole society because of this, and also digitalize actually a lot of companies because they need to go online, for example, has actually enabled a bit more companies to start the journey to become more data and AI ready. So I hope, for one, we know that hopefully the next outbreak, the next pandemic that may happen, perhaps we can detect it before it actually does become a pandemic. Perhaps we can, if we start to really analyze it, start making use of all the progress that happened just recent months and year in AI to find medicines more efficiently. Perhaps companies can start to transform and build up processes in healthcare or whatnot, or transportation or so many other things that is more sustainable, that does even have a chance to work with disruptions like this. I think this is an awesome opportunity, and we should really think about combining these efforts to have a more pandemic-safe future. And I think we have that opportunity.
But pull it down to the trends. What is the trends for? So if we summarize 2020, digitalization actually was all about collaboration online. In a simple way is one key aspect.
It was not.
Yeah, It
was not. It was basically going through, cutting to everything that it was nice to have.
I put it in another way.
Was needed to do.
Which one was the most used words in 2020?
Corona?
No. Unmute.
That's true. No, I think the collaboration was definitely a major factor there. But I think that what 2020 showed quite well is that, so in 2019, you remember we were talking about the 2020 is going to be a very big paradigm shift. And the reason why we believed, me and Henrik, that it will be so that we thought like the end of the pioneering or experimentation is over, and that we are moving to a
industrialization
decade.
And Corona now has in some ways
the Corona basically it was an inhibitor that pushed catalyzer, that basically pushed a little bit further. But the idea was that we started NDSML and data innovation 5 years ago, right? When it was only 900 true data scientists that are right now called machine learning experts and etc. And so companies has been investing for 5 years into pilot projects.
With the prototype graveyard and all the stuff we talked about.
So after 5 years, you start like thinking like, okay, where's the
ROI?
Yes. Okay. So, and it was obvious that in October last year, organizations started to do that, because you can see how the people start moving from one company to another. There is a reshifting, there is like a remodeling in the company, there is new divisions creating, like head of AI division, head of this and that. That means that they are right now looking into, okay, this was good, this was not good, this is how we need to go. And especially companies like Scania, like Ericsson, etc. They are companies that they do not invest in pilots, they invest in excellence. That is the Toyota Lean Sigma that Lale was talking, and then Statoil and etc. So these are companies that take things seriously. When they invest in a subject, they invest in order for them to excel in the subject. And the first 5 years, where we're going to put them, how we're going to put them, who's going to lead them. Well, this was not working out. Now 2020 was supposed to, and we had like even preparation for the data innovation speech and etc. where we were talking about this is what is going to happen this year. And then Corona hit, and this was just basically obvious in a 1 second.
I mean, it's basically, I think, that Corona forced companies and society to commit to deploy.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Now that is the real trend. The real trend is summarized by commit to deploy.
Yes.
The companies who goes into 2021 and hasn't understood the concept of the prototype graveyard and hasn't started in another mindset, they will not survive. It's that simple. Yeah. And I see this very, very clearly. Let me take a Scania example. It's a bit personal, but fuck it. I mean, like Scania is doing a great journey, and they've been working with data platform, data lake, stuff like this. And in a nutshell, they have some of the most amazing projects. And now I'm talking huge projects around electrification, autonomous vehicles. But if I look at Scania still as a data and AI ready company, is this an enterprise capability, or is it truly is it project capabilities, or even sub team capabilities? And Scania has been pushing. They are changing. This is a good example. That's what I'm driving it, because I think it resonates with what Vattenfall is doing. But this is now very close to my heart, where I'm burning for. Scania knows and understands that they are part of a transport ecosystem. They understand that there is a paradigm shift on how the whole business model will look like, what transport is all about, and then what is a transport manufacturer, truck manufacturer all about. So they've been knowing about this topic. They've been working on this topic deliberately with big investments. But I really sense that the first years also in this sense has been pioneering years. And no one knows exactly what the transport ecosystem will be. No one knows exactly how the energy ecosystem will look like. But that it becomes an ecosystem, it's clear. That they need to have data around it, it's clear. And I think now they have been talking about a lot of stuff, and they have been doing projects-wise certain stuff. But I think now it's a super, super exciting time to be working with Scania right now, because I feel the sense of urgency, I feel the passion and the drive to go to 2.0 in all the stuff we're doing. Exactly. So if I take the data lake and the data platform team, we need to do 2.0 on this. If I take data governance and the data management team, they have been working great for 5 years, but they are moving in, they're really, actually, they are doing first principle on themselves. And I'm getting goosebumps when I say that. So
by the way, that is your t-shirt.
Yeah.
Goosebumps.
Goosebumps. Yeah. I say that a couple of times.
Yes.
But I mean, it's like they were not ready to do the next gear 1, 2, 3 years ago. No. But everything is sort of lining up now. And with Corona as a catalyst, and they have been having some golden arrow projects where basically we need to have this to have understanding of the market now, fix it, and then in super short time fixing really cool stuff, analytics that they've been working on and stuff like that. So something is happening with where sort of I emphasize from pioneering to industrialization. The timing, the way we define that, Goran, is right. And the catalyst of COVID just put that even more to the map. And I feel that sense of urgency. And I think Petronella proved it also. She highlighted, we're not talking about the cloud, we are doing it. And the maturity of how the conversations are 2 years ago to now, something has shifted right in 2020.
Yes. Good.
But just to summarize that, I think, in 2021, I think people have realized and companies have realized we can transform quickly. So I think a clear trend will be we have learned from Corona that we can
do it.
We can commit to deploy.
So
then, continue to do that in a much faster pace than ever seen before to become more data and AI driven.
Okay.
That's clear.
Do you want any tech trends? Did you want that in order to get some good SEO
let me do
search engine optimization
I have been thinking about
stuff
this,
here?
So I want to make it very sharpened, and I think it's actually
because let's talk about a couple of tech trends. Really,
no, I cannot do tech trends. I can also just so my job as a company that is actually a bystander and just looking at trends, and trends, especially when it comes to ego of companies and movement of people. And when I say ego is a good thing. It's aspiration. So, and I would like to connect this with Anders. So these are my 4 things, and we have been working, me and Ivana, who is editorial at Read channel at Hyper, on this. The first one is hyper automation. Is basically we think that in 2021 we will see a very, very quick adaptation of AI machine learning practices into and good use cases across departments and companies. And I think that this has been cooking for a long time, and it's basically an impact of what we said, like a process of experimentation to decade of industrialization. And this year has been very experimental for many organizations, and they have learned how to work on a skunk work type of environment when they are not together, but still they need to deploy. And I think that is super great. And it's basically, like you said, like they can transform very quickly. That is basically also the hyper automation across industries and across divisions and functions, I think. The second one, this is basically the implication of the first one. It's the deficit of talent and the word for talent. Because we have been getting quite a lot of calls from friends and companies and etc. to either find a talent or to recommend somebody, etc. And I believe this is going to be much more obvious, and it's something that we predicted as well last year, and I think we're going to see it throughout the decade, and that is training and repurposing of skill set, because the universities are not capable of producing those on the right way. So I will need to connect this on Atir, who was here, saying that basically research is all about money. I believe that talent is all about money, and we need to change in Sweden and in the Nordics. Now, I don't know about the Nordics, but in Sweden we need to change the whole spectrum of how do we basically attract talent into this country. Everything from Socialdepartementet, Arbetsförmedlingen, and all of the social security numbers. It's very difficult for people right now to find places to stay or to get into this working environment, and we are basically shooting ourselves in the foot if we don't attract this talent. I believe VASP is doing a great thing to attract talent so they can see that this is potential
on the research point.
Yes, on the research, but we need to get more people in, and I think that people are hungry, and we as a Hyper, we will work on this in 2020.
But the talent management topic is bigger than only.
Let me finish this so I can go. The other thing that we see right now, this is also in speaking with our contacts, is that actually AI as a service. We believe that there is enough evidence that the really good data scientists, machine learning engineers, and everybody else, they don't work for companies anymore. They're sold. Okay, fine. But I do apologize. I will take that back. But there is a number of companies that are actually creating quite good consultancy companies that are actually capable of doing quite good jobs. So why would you, as a company, risk to develop something where there is a scarcity of talent, but there is something that you can deploy? This is also good for auto ML or auto AI type of things. So AI as a service, it's both for as a service and both as a product. And I truly believe in this, and I think that this is something that we're going to see more and more in the future. So these are my top 3. Of course, AI ethics is there, but the AI ethics is not going to be solved until the GDPR is solved. So, so these are my 3.
And if I do my top 3 like that, I think I already mentioned one, but let me be more to the point with it. I think we need to understand that whether we like it or not, we will end up in a couple of fundamental data and AI ecosystems: transport, public sector, life science, or patient, energy. And that fundamental data and AI ecosystem drives that whether we like it or not, we need to understand distributed systems. And we need to understand how to build machine learning models with closed data, as Anders put it. Because there's no, if I take the energy ecosystem, you have several companies like Vattenfall who owns network, and it's super secure data, and it's even NSI data, National Security Information data. And at the same time, we want to optimize the grid to balance volatility and of our voltage balancing, blah, blah, blah. So here we need to then share data between E.ON and Vattenfall, who is fierce competitors, together with the technical transmission service operator, TSO, Svenska Kraftnät. So energy ecosystem, very similar to data roaming in telco, right? Mm-hmm. So distributed platform thinking. And here I think then we are on a journey now. To do this, you need to be in cloud. And to do this, you need to have a combination of edge computing and edge analytics and IoT, or how you connect, and you need to think carefully where you do compute and stuff like this. So, but the fundamental driving factor is distributed systems based on ecosystem thinking, whether you like it or not.
Is this the same with federated?
Federated machine learning is one of the most important techniques. If you think the world looks like that, then federated machine learning, as an example, is how do I have privacy preserving AI, right? How do I do that? It becomes a key challenge. Okay, so that is one key trend that I think we will better and better. It becomes more and more clear. In Scania, this is clear. In Vattenfall, this is clear. In Grundfos, this is clear. In intelligent water. Yeah. So this is one of my key trends. The other key trend, which is sort of more on the technical side, but actually plays into the same game. Now we start using the words like data mesh. Yeah, this is a buzzword right now, but it really means how do I go from ingesting data and building monolithic central data systems or platforms to more distributed systems? How do I serve data between, if I have different data products? So it goes with the ecosystem thinking. I will have some domain data within Scania that needs to be served to other parts of Scania. If I go beyond, Scania has some data that needs to be served into the transport ecosystem. The data product thinking needs a mesh. How do we data interact with each other? And I even think that's the way you solve the public sector idea. How it's a distributed platform. That's the way you build it, and where you have central platform design patterns and then federated governance and stuff like this. So now I said distributed ecosystem. I used the word technology data mesh, and then the next key word I want to say, the third one, is federated governance. Okay. And federated governance mean how you have basically not only centralized, and we have a centralized way of thinking, and now everybody needs to do the same as me do, and I can dictate that, Tayloristic, or the opposite is extreme anarchy, decentralization in silos, right? Yes. So this federated view, and if you take that the whole way, circle around, then community. How we work on standards and stuff like that.
That was obvious this year. I think that.
So that's where I think this is going.
That is good, actually. Collaboration. I will put as a 4 because
if you are a participant in an ecosystem, how do you set the standards in that ecosystem, or how do you basically? Yeah, I don't think you start with the governing bodies. You're going to start with peer-to-peers in communities that do skunk work, and I truly that leads into standardization bodies.
I think this is good. We're going to see more and more of this. I believe that it's the awakening of the enterprises. Yeah, let's call it like that. That is a T-shirt.
Awakening of the.
So you still owe us your 3 predictions for next year from technology point of view. NLP, something. NLP, what do you think? That
Transformers will rule the world. Is this the year of the Transformer?
Yeah, attention is all you need.
Attention! A new T-shirt.
That's Google has already said that. That was a research paper in 2007.
But do they have a T-shirt?
No.
Let's.
I think it's
okay.
Good from many points of view.
Okay. Now we have first principle T-shirt. Now we have commit to deploy. Attention is all you need. Yeah. All right. That's a good T-shirt.
Just to come back a bit to what you said, Goran, as well, about talents and the need for that. And I certainly, of course, agree. But I think it can be expanded a bit. And for one, I think a company should have at least one or a few that are like super talents and truly understand in a deep way what AI is. Truly. But what the company really needs, I would say, is a broad understanding of AI or the basics of AI. Yes. So the people in the management team, the people in different departments throughout the company have an understanding of the extreme potential that do exist if you use data and AI properly. And I think that is something that's going to happen even more in 2021.
So increasement of data literacy amongst enterprise executives.
Yeah, so an increase in AI potential of non-AI experts. That was a bit convoluted, but
yeah. So I have a very good one about this. If you're an executive and you want to start learning about this, there are 2 courses that you should take. One is Elements of AI. Yeah. I have personally taken it. It's only for, I don't know, it's going to take you a couple of weeks. Yeah. And it gives you the basics of AI, what it means. The second one is basically the leadership guide, leadership AI guide for AI guide for enterprises that Peltarion did with a preface of Marcus Wallenberg in that, which I still use as a quote.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
I think that is a very nice book because it gives also quite a good use cases.
Continue. But we use the data literacy topic to talk about you need to be literate in relevance in order for your role. So you need to be able to speak conversational about AI for a CEO, and then further down the stack, how close to the expertise you are. Until you're the professor, right? You're the PhD. But everybody needs to know data and AI and need to be educated. So then we have an adult learning trend, which is massive.
Yeah. And then
cool. Yeah. So I think this will continue to increase the actual understanding in a broad sense, and all the work that AI Sweden and the Swedish AI agenda and so forth are doing is really making this happen, and I think will happen in 2021. Okay, so let's go a bit more techy then.
Yeah.
And I think something that few people do understand is they don't really understand the extreme progress that AI has made in just recent years. Yes. They still think AI or machine learning is what it was in the 80s or something. And that's certainly not the case. So, something that is happening now a lot in recent years and will continue to happen is, you can use AI to structure unstructured data. Or what I mean with that is unstructured data is like text or videos or audio. And normally it's super hard to work with that. And that's really what the latest type of AI techniques enables. So you can even work with this kind of unstructured data and make awesome predictions. So text I think is the best example. Just, since the transformer came in 2017 and then, with the BERT in 2018, it has been an explosion of products.
So transformer technology really took off in 18? Or the way of thinking?
Starting from 17 and then afterwards, yes.
We didn't use it before then, really.
No, it didn't
exist. So someone figured it out.
Yeah, so Google published the paper. And I guess Google did use it partly, but just for research purposes before. But they didn't even put it in production in Google Translate, I think, until 2000.
Yeah, so for 80% of the population not knowing what transformers are, you're okay. But now you need to pay attention.
Yes. Attention is all you need. No, but this has truly made it possible to understand text by the semantics, the meaning. Instead of counting word frequencies, which is like a common way before, you can actually start to mean what text means from a more semantical point of view. And this has really never been possible before. So just in recent years, it's been possible and it's available. And just what happened, for example, this year, it was a new model coming up called MT5. So it's a multilingual T5. And it's another type of transformer. It came like a month ago. And it enables you to use text for 100 languages at once with state-of-the-art performance. It's awesome. And what that model can do is not only this kind of normal text classification or question answering or text similarity, but also generate text like GPT-3. But this one, is proper model that you can take. You can train it on your own data and make it work for your own use case and fine-tune it for your own task. You can't do that with GPT-3. So stop thinking about GPT-3, or people that think you can use it. Start looking at T5 and MT5, but then we can have a Swedish example of something that can both, use state-of-the-art performance for NLP, both when it comes to classification, regression, and also generation of text, which is awesome. It's just, Another key trend when it comes to tech is that a common complaint for especially deep learning is that you need so much data, they claim. But what we've seen in recent years is it's an extreme focus with minimizing the need for annotated data. So that means that you don't need to have like millions. You don't need to have 10,000. You don't even need to have 1,000, perhaps even examples for being able to predict something. You can have a very, very small amount of annotated data points and still work and it works surprisingly well. So this kind of self-supervised learning doesn't really require annotations, and the whole field of unsupervised learning.
Unsupervised learning is actually if you ask Carl Tomé, he would say unsupervised learning is one of the key trends.
Yeah, or ask Jan LeCun, one of the pioneers of deep learning and head of AI at Facebook. He basically says self-supervised learning is
that is what actually Carl Tomé said. Self-supervised.
Self-supervised. That's what I meant. Sorry.
So many things that happen there, and something that we spend a lot of time with, and I personally do as well, is like active learning techniques. Basically saying, how can you just make the system say you need to annotate this one? Then, if you just annotate the minimal amount you need, then basically any company can start using these techniques without having these super expensive ways of annotating data.
Because I think that's the problem, right? We have to prepare data so well before we get to this stage.
Yes, but it's happening so much in research, and this enables anyone, and especially in 2021, to start using, for example, NLP techniques without having a lot of annotated data. And these kind of multilingual models, for example, you can train it in English and use it in Swedish. It's like insane, without having any Swedish annotated data at all. It's like amazing. So a lot of things that happen there. And perhaps just two final points, not as technical, but I think, when it comes to application of AI, it's really, when you can find examples when the human gets augmented with AI, where you find the best positive effects.
Yeah, this is a trend. We are shifting from artificial intelligence to latching onto H&M's augmented intelligence.
I think called it amplifying, but it does. Yeah, it's the same kind
amplified. Okay.
Yeah,
that's right. That's true.
Anyway, if you take some examples, it can be radiologists. They want to segment or build a treatment plan for a cancer patient. You don't use AI for the whole thing. The only thing that you use AI for is to process the part of that process that requires a lot of data. So if you want to build a treatment plan, you need to go through like hundreds of CAT scan images, for example. That's a process that is really hard for a human to do. Human can't go through a lot of data quickly and efficiently, but an AI system can do that. And it can do that better or equally well as a human expert. So let the AI do what it's good at, processing data. Let humans do what they are good at, which is the reasoning, the background knowledge that they have, which can put things in a context that an AI system is not even close to be able to do today. Yeah. So by combining the two, you can make nurses do super complicated things and make all the processes in the health sector, for example, so much more efficient.
But are you finished? Because yes. I think this is something that I'm proud of with this pod. Mm-hmm. When we start demystifying these things, AI, instead of being something very fluffy up in the air where you can talk broad stroke and not really do anything about, and you can talk about ethics and it's scary and you can't really do anything about, simply by combining these different contexts, but then also talking with real experts, and you demystify, it's really all about this. We're going to augment or amplify the radiologist by simply looking hardcore in the really data-driven tasks that probably you are not so fond of doing anyway. Mm. And then I think everything starts to make a hell of a lot of sense. And truly, of course, you can find use case applications for AI in almost every single process when you have the right goggles on.
Yeah, but I mean,
I think this is quite profound.
Yes.
What we have, I'm proud that we have I feel we have accomplished to get that message across with examples, hammering it in. Yeah. That it's not that hard if you do first principle and then laser focus on where the data problem is and fix that.
Yeah. And I believe that, this is natural course of progress.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to a bowling alley?
I have.
Okay. So before 50s, there was a guy who was sitting behind the poles, right? What they're called?
The pins.
The pins. And every time we will knock it, there was this guy who was actually setting them up. Mm. So yes, the automation took his job of putting that, a mundane work that he had basically a back pain for the rest of his life, and put him to welcome guests instead.
Right.
And this is the best way how to say. This has always been about augmenting and amplifying.
Yes.
This is a progress. And it's a simple way to explain it.
If you take that mindset, you will find your AI cases everywhere.
So move the ping guy from the backyard, so to speak, into the front end and talking to people, or move nurses from sitting behind a computer and writing these kind of horrible reports all the time, and actually having them speaking to patients directly.
We talk about public sector, but we don't have enough.
We cannot hear you.
We talk about the public sector. We don't have enough people to do the real work, and then we hear how much people. Our teachers are spending on
administrative work, or the
work,
police, or whatnot.
All the police. It goes on and on and on. I want my dad as a guest here, and he can tell you about this stuff. And he will be the first. He doesn't know anything about AI, but he can tell you about all the administration you need to do as a head of.
We think about AI with these cool cases about. Impossible almost cases how they're going to revolutionize the business, but why don't we start thinking about how we actually going to make our employees and customers better experience while working or
let me start or end with the last kind of trend then.
Good, let's do that.
And it's super boring, and I actually was thinking, should I really take this up? But I think it's one of the core challenges that is hindering so many companies from actually using data and AI, and that's the legal challenge.
Okay, that was the trend here.
So the trend is that people before, in 2020 and backwards, has been super afraid about using data and AI, even to the extent that they are removing data just to be on the safe side, so to speak.
Yes, there is a number of examples.
Yes, and I don't want to name companies, but there are many of them. I've starting to see now, and even in healthcare sectors, because we're working with this big medical language data lab with Sahlgrenska Region Halland, Folktandvården and other. And, they are starting to be less afraid about regulation and have the courage to actually start making use of data and starting to really figure out, what is really possible. To instead of being just, take the safe side, they actually look into, is this possible or not? And can we use techniques like federated learning, for example, to come around and actually solve these problems? So this is more of a hope than a prediction, but I actually do think, since I started to see the trend already now in 2020, I think this will be a big trend in 2021. Companies will start to make use and have courage to use data and AI.
Yes, I can prove the trend. Dig used last week, published a new report.
It was yesterday.
Yesterday, they published a report on experiments they have done in order to do trustworthy AI, and basically
it's not experiment, it's actually a real test.
No, what I mean is like
it's good one.
It's pilot I would use, but not the pilot. What they were trying to pilot was not only an AI process, but they're trying to build a framework and the model how you keep the trust within the public sector even if you have AI. So they basically have now published a report that highlights that one of the key strengths we have in the offentliga sector and public sector in Sweden, maybe compared to other nations, is quite a high trust. And we want to keep that trust.
That is true.
And that means when we now bring AI into the decision making, there needs to be transparency. There needs to be things done. So what they have done now in a couple of different projects on smaller scale, they have end-to-end put something in production, but also understood how do we document this? How do we manage this in a way that is sustainable and trustworthy? And for me, this is the ultimate proof. What Anders is saying is that we were used paralyzed by fear to not make something wrong, and then it's like almost drowning, and you're getting back on the beach, standing up. And now basically with resolution, getting back into the water to go crawling again. But now I'm going to do it smartly, and I'm going to do some stuff, and I'm going to do it in a good way. So simply that report being on the table now as a recommendation with the clear actions on how it actually goes from this is impossible to can we try it to here is a model how to do it, which is then more of that stuff will prove that this trend, we cannot live in fear, right? We need to figure it out. And it's happening. I think that's the ultimate proof.
Perfect. I think it's a good way to close discussion for today. We have, I think that we should end up, we are right now 12 minutes away from 3, so we will basically end on 3.
3 hours.
I think this was a great summary because we started in this, and I believe that it's a hopeful, let's end up a hopeful year where we understand that what is happening is actually right now we understanding that we need to stand and start swimming again.
Yes.
And
get in the pool.
It looks messy and it looks heavy and it looks difficult and it looks helpless in some kind of way, but we will persevere and we will take the next leap. And I think this is very important. And Europe and the enterprises has always been strong in accelerating when they know where to go. So the driving license is there. They know the path. The Maserati is already here. Let's move away. So now, as the last part, what is going on with your life and your life? And Kirill. Today we have Kirill with us as well, who is a technician. So
yeah.
What is next?
Start a bit perhaps. So, I'm really looking forward to these kind of research projects we're having. And these are like national Vinnova funded things that we do in Batarium together with RISE and this kind of medbed project, for example, with Region Halland, which is a very innovative region in Sweden. Västra Götalandsregionen, Sahlgrenska, the public dental sector and others. We are now coming into the final year of that project, and we're starting to see a lot of cool things like how you can use AI to predict if it should prescribe antibiotics or not. And to start to see, what the ability truly are, and seeing that being deployed and, doing pilots, not only prototypes, is something I'm really much looking forward to in 2021. And the same with this other, like Svebert, building up language models together, with Skatteverket, the tax authority, and Arbetsförmedlingen, the employment agency, and so forth, which are really innovative agencies. And it's so cool to see how there are some really good examples that even public sector have. Even though there are a lot of, not so good ones, there are a couple of really good ones. And awesome to see what will happen there. We also have a number of other cool things like combining AI with circular economy. So this is with the Matthias professor.
Matthias needs to come here.
Yeah. But this is an increasing trend that we're seeing that, just as AI and data will, transform industry in different ways, just as Corona has done it in different ways, circular economy and having a more sustainable way to build products and services is something that's becoming increasingly important. And I think just as you can combine AI and Corona in a symbiosis to make both work in the same direction, you can also combine circular economy and AI to move to more sustainable development of products and services. So this is something we're going to work more with next year. And even to the point we're planning potentially to start up a new journal, AI journal, which is a spin-off from one of the Professor Matthias journals, which is in cleaner journal production, but have something like a sustainable AI journal.
What is a journal in this context?
So journal is where you publish research articles, but a journal is, perhaps a bit more nice than conferences. Conferences, you go to some place normally when it's not Corona.
Thank you.
And,
I understand the point. Yes.
Yeah. So a new scientific journal where we can speak specifically about sustainable AI development, both sustainable in terms of environment, but also sustainable in terms of economy, and also sustainable in terms of technology, I would argue. And thinking of sustainability in that kind of broad sense, I think is super exciting and could be a really good thing. Perfect. Another thing we're doing next year is, I can end here, otherwise, I continue forever.
What about you?
What about me?
Any new songs you're gonna do on your karaoke stage? Are you going for a new song next year? Okay,
I can say I have not been going to Gröna Jägaren this year, which is because of understandable reasons. So next year, I certainly hope that we have vaccines and we can go without fear of any kind of virus and sing a lot more karaoke in Gröna Jägaren.
Yeah, that's a metric I will commit to deploy.
Okay, Henrik.
Well,
7 minutes.
I mean, on a couple of different facets. Airplane Alliance was slowly initiated in 2019, had an ambition to take steps in 2020 that was in some ways slower than planned, but in some ways accelerated to go digital and to create sort of knowledge sharing platform and ideas. We initiated 2 chapters this year, a data science chapter and a data and AI commercialization chapter. Q1, we are heading up, starting a chapter of a peer-to-peer chapter in data stewardship or data management. And the real ambition here is we have been sort of trying to find the operating model or the business model around it. And I think in 2021, that's the next step to sort of stabilize what is really much an experiment and in beta, and try to get the processes right. But it has had really good feedback. But we need to take it out of the pioneering stage.
I think you guys are too shy. I think that you should open your wings, and there is a lot of companies that believe that we will be taking part of that.
We did the soft launch, and we haven't done the marketing drum at all, and we haven't, and you know, but actually, what I want to do with Airplane next year is, I think, goes back to this fragmentation topic that was mentioned by Anders. There are so many different initiatives, both from different players, like, you know, trying to create communities, or Vinnova funded, or AI Sweden. And I think we are to the point where we need to start collaborating or pooling resources. So, you know, I would like to take what I'm doing and put that in the context of maybe AI Sweden, maybe, you know, I've been flirting with John Bosch a lot because I think there's a huge convergence of what they are doing, and I really like the stuff that Software Center is doing. And why do we need to have 10 different communities? That's just bullshit. So this is what I wish for from 2021, that we find ways to actually pool the resources, or I don't know. This is one. For DareDux, we are on the brink of taking a major step as a consortium, and taking a global step of that consortium. So basically working together, several companies, and following customers on a global scale, which is new for this year. Now we started it sort of has proven to work, and in the end, it's a little bit working on disrupting the traditional procurement approach. We are hoping that we are doing something that will make an impact with a couple of customers next year, that we then, when we have done that, once again, I rather bootstrap, like Lars talks about, and show the value, and then scale.
Good.
Yeah. And then for Scania, interesting year, how we have worked in a very interesting project, and where we now have had some major, the plan how we're going to run and work on the next 5 years has been sort of approved on board level, and which is a really, really ambitious, first principle driven idea, which makes my bumps goose up.
Again,
awesome so I'm really excited with that journey in Scania. And I don't want to go into details, but we are this year, I think, moving in my areas into the machinery style approach.
As we are growing in, a maturity is actually growing. I believe the opportunities will only rise. Yeah. So I'm truly inspired by that. Good. So that is it for this season.
I love how when we get to do it ourselves, we break the record, 3 hours.
Yeah, because we need to have it. But I think it was a fantastic learning journey, especially for me. I enjoyed every single second of that. I enjoyed every single moment in getting this what is called the guests here, and enjoying the process of it. And I believe that after work has become like something that is truly mesmerizing in the terms of knowledge sharing and collaboration and joy.
The after work.
For those of you that you don't know about this, so basically the idea behind the AI pod was actually to be like a punk style of a podcast, where we wanted to mimic something which was happening in the 80s and 90s, when you had DJs in the radios having guests in one of the rooms, and then they basically call one of the guys like, hey, come, let's talk about AI ethics and etc. So we want to have a little bit noise We want to have more people here joining us every Thursday, because this is about a movement. This is not about podcasts. It's about you. It's about us. It's about the journey and the ambition that we have, and you are part of it. So if
and
you're listening to this,
we have a dream to make this club into a bar. I know.
Not this exactly place, but it's the ambition.
No, but what I mean with that is that maybe once a month, when the Corona is over, that we do this as a true after work, and we have guests here, and we all hang around, and we can even
and this is very important, and this is very important, and this is very truthful to our cause. And with this, basically, I want to thank every single one of the guests that attended this year. To you too, as a fantastic host this year. It's been truly an honor being amongst you giants.
And thank you,
Goran. Thank you for making this happen.
Amazing organization.
And then I believe that for all of you listening, we are right now back on 14th of January with the season 2. We have already confirmed around new 10 guests that are coming, and some of them some of them you will be surprised. We have some CIOs, some founders, some experts in AI ethics.
Yeah, I think the first one is really exciting, with the publication in Nature about, how you can use AI for the sustainable development goals and things like that.
Exactly.
Nick Boström. So cool stuff.
There are going to be some very good guests. And
should we name drop? We can name drop.
No, it doesn't matter. I want to leave it to the excitement a bit. We are also probably going to invest in some new features and etc. But nevertheless, if you are with us and you're listening, we are here with you. And if you have something to say, you can always even call us, because we can bootstrap you into the. I think this is something that will be
making it a bit more interactive in some way. If we could have comments during the.
We can actually have people calling and actually having conversations. Yes,
let's take calls.
Yes.
Do you all remember that the guy in the psychology where you call in and you get therapeutic advice on the call? Who's the next call? I don't know.
No, but it is possible. So we have the equipment. Then
or perhaps it can be a bit more digital, and they can ask questions online.
No, but for those of that do not know, we have YouTube. Basically, the channel is always open. But I look forward to more guests in person, and to much more beautiful moments in 2021.
Perhaps one aim could be as well to try to bring some of the feeling of after work into the after work.
Yeah. Yes.
And what does that mean? For me, it means
but then we need
even
to take
more
the censor out, the censure out of the mouth and start talking really about the elephants that exist in this room.
But punk rock also means politically incorrect.
Yeah, well,
to call out the pink elephants in the room. But it's tricky to do on camera. Maybe I don't know, but it would be nice. We haven't been so pushy either. I
believe a bit too nice. Perhaps another goal should be we should be less nice next year.
We need to frame it differently. We should be nice, but we should dare to go to the dangerous, difficult questions.
Dare to challenge a bit more.
Dare to reach new frontiers. Data AI ready to reach new frontiers.
Yep. Good. Yep. So with that, thank you so much for this year, and see you on 14th of
Dare to challenge.
January.